Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships. We are now into the crunch time of the League of Legends tournament. One team will find themselves in the semi-finals after this best of three. The other will be in a decider match that takes place on the Saturday. It is going to be H2k versus ROX Tigers. And as Froskurin so wonderfully put it, the kid gloves are off.
Yeah, it's kind of nut up or shut up time. We went a little bit easy on the European teams, particularly Unicorns of Love and H2k with kind of their fumbles around the Shin Ultimate and losing tempo advantage and efficiency about how they were making plays around the map, simply because it's, it's best of one, it's nerves. They could be trying to just play the 100% perfect, clean, methodical game because they don't want to take a risk on a snowball the other way. In a best of series, you can afford to kind of go back to your roots and play a bit, not riskier, but make those confident plays because you do have that extra game in the bag.
Which those confident plays we saw out of the Asian teams. The Korean teams and the LMS were actually being proactive. Even Hong Kong Esports was making moves around the map that you would not expect. And so I'm putting a lot of faith in these teams now. Now that they have best of three, you can actually bring to the table the kind of targeting ban selection that you can do in games 2 and game 3, which are very common in Europe, where they like to just completely nullify one team comp that worked game 1, go into the second game and make sure that they don't get any of those comfort picks where you can really extend that strategy that the coaches have over teams and really just kind of bring the full force of a team.
I mean, it's hard to analyze how these teams have played thus far, right? The competition has been wildly different between H2k and ROX Tigers. You can't really analyze how they'll... You're making a point, Froskurin.
Well, arguably,
subbing you in.
Well, arguably, you can say that they faced the two weakest teams in the tournament just because it's M19 and the Hong Kong Esports had no idea that they were going to be here. So I think that there is a fair statement there. And ROX Tigers, like definitively closed the door on it.
Exactly. I really like that because the ROX, let's say that you would have put Hong Kong Esports versus ROX, I feel like the matchup the result would have been nearly identical to what we saw ROX do to M19. And so that is why I'm putting a lot of more onus on them to succeed in this matchup than H2k, which really struggled with a bit of lack of confidence. And perhaps, I mean, we even heard in the interview with Yankos that they're saying, yeah, maybe top European team's not as good as bottom 8 Korean.
Yeah, sure. Well, speaking of the two teams that will be playing in this best of 3, let's welcome them to the stage. H2k and ROX Tigers, they'll be playing for a chance to make it to the semi-final at the Spodek Arena on Sunday. Welcome them to the stage. So we've seen these teams in action. You said you arguably can make the case that actually ROX Tigers look better because of the, I was wrong in saying that, maybe you can't compare it. Maybe actually on reflection, I'm going to reflect right now for the past 5 minutes. Yes, you probably can. Like you said, you're very correct in saying that arguably M19 and HKE might be the weakest competition that we have here. And H2K looked like they were struggling. They took a while to close their game out.
Yeah, and it's also kind of different champion diversity. Everyone's been playing a very similar meta. That makes sense. We have more European representatives than we do kind of any other competition here. But ROX and Mickey in particular is kind of the one guy that's stood up and been like, I will play an assassin in the mid lane and I will punish you for overstepping. Everyone else is just, the wave clear, the standard Syndras, the Ryzes, the Cassiopeias, the Orianas.
And those Syndra picks can be punished by Zed, which is becoming meta. There is itemization that helps him become quite powerful. And with the kind of AD percentage that he gets off his ultimate kills, when you're facing non-attack speed carries in the bottom lane like Jhin and Varus, that steal becomes really important. You get a lot of damage off that, making that pick even more viable.
And these teams are so keen to play 1-3-1 or 1-4, and Zed thrives there. So I'm really surprised that we haven't seen him. Like, I can understand he's still a very niche pick in very particular circumstances, but a lot of these teams are walking right into it, and I want to see Mickey go to the comfort.
If someone's doing it, it's him.
Yep.
Well, I think if we're looking at a standout performer from the ROX Tigers early on, you're right to say Mickey was the one. He stepped up. Admittedly, they had pressure across the entire map, but Mickey in that bot lane caused so many problems for M19 that game, and he was just Echo dominating, and then, ROX played around him really well. do you think he'll be allowed that space versus H2k?
So I don't think we can put too much on how the lane succeeded against M19. We want to focus more on how they closed out the game, their proactivity, because they had the Ivern, they had no pressure in the match. That's Cole on Corky middle. They really just got away with laning for free, and we're praising them for their ability to close out the game as a team, to work together and say, we want to pressure this, we want for this objective, and we want to close out quickly.
Okay, I'll rephrase. A lot of the early jungle pressure that came out for ROX Tigers gave them a huge advantage to set up. You're now going against Jankos. He's one of the most aggressive European junglers. You know, he's named First Blood King for a reason. Maybe you're not going to be getting that time and space as the ROX Tigers. Maybe you've got to adjust your game plan. You're not going to get that same aggressive pathing.
But the ROX Tigers would even do this against the likes of Peanut. Like, if you go back to their series in the LCK against SKT, like, Huni definitively looked like a god that series and just absolutely crushed them. But ROX were making the correct calls. They would try to do aggressive invades on red buffs, you know, contesting all these micro advantages. It was simply like mis-execution. They would literally like miss smites. It's like, that's the right play, ROX, but you fumble it. The question for me in the matchup against H2k is H2k need to show consistency. And so far, kind of in their series leading into this, they actually have. And so if ROX are smart and they can test Jankos, like if we go to this big head-to-head early game into the jungle, I don't think ROX have shown the consistency domestically yet to match against H2k's current trends. But this is like a big...
This has been the entire chat of the week, right?
Everything domestic seems to just get thrown out the window. Flash Wolves domestically look nothing like what we've seen. All the domestic success that the European teams have had are not true. Even UOL played a completely different game. Like, they took out 50 minutes in one of the least bloody games of the day. And ROX Tigers, they don't look this refined, but we saw them crush M19. Obviously, the competition is much weaker, but I do think that we can't take so much for domestic, and we have to just apply what we have seen in the tournament thus far and kind of try to expand on that and make sure that we understand that this is the style and this is the level that the teams are showing. And as we get a best of three, we can definitely make our stance on what these teams are bringing to the table.
So we saw ROX. They didn't look at all nervous. They looked like they knew how to execute what they were trying to achieve. Like you said, they played off that pressure in the bot lane really nicely. They were one of the teams, along with Flash Wolves, to do it. I'd say argue that Flash Wolves did it better, but, you know, ROX Tigers were kind of at that level. You know, they were playing confidently around the pressure that they're creating. Both our European winning teams, they were the ones that were reserved. They were the ones that weren't willing to push the button. They kind of fumbled some early game tier 1 dives in the bot lane, but, you know, H2k have got to essentially say, okay, now we can't play like we're nervous anymore. We can't play reserved. We've got to try and play that style that we play in Europe all the time.
This can be incredibly volatile. Like, this game is probably going to swing one way or the other wildly based on just, you know, who gets the better skirmish, who executes on their abilities.
And, you know, it really just could be that fact that the incredible amount of pressure that has been put on the European teams is really just getting to them. Because it's not like most tournaments where you have one team that's expected to just, yeah, this team is the best that we can offer. It's all three teams were expected to just first, second, and third, like to that extent, which is really insane because you don't really have that pillars of, oh, if my teammates do poorly, then, or if my other teams from the region do poorly, then I can still be fine. If they do poorly, you start doubting yourself and thinking, if we're at their level and they're suffering, how are we going to do it?
I mean, if you extrapolate from this point here, this is the three teams in Europe, given their current form, you would expect to see going to Worlds, for instance. You know, this is the three European World team contenders almost. You want to see them at an international competition where you're not facing anywhere near, you know, barring Flash Wolves maybe, the level of competition that you're going to be seeing on a world stage. We, as, you know, a European scene, and I can say it because being a European fan myself, you know, we will want to see a level here that we can say, actually, when we go into an international competition, we can dominate. You know, we can replicate what we see in the EU LCS. We can come out all guns blazing. And I think if you're going to do it in a series, now this first game of the best of three, that's a good time to start.
But ultimately, you also have to look at how we're still relatively in the infancy of spring split.
Yeah.
Like Worlds and even MSI are so far down the track,
obviously.
and a lot of these rosters have changed. I think that's a fair statement to make against the likes of G2 because they're one of the more consistent rosters from carrying over, although their support staff has been adjusting, so, you know, we don't really know how much of a dynamic that makes, but there's still a lot of growing pains in how these rosters are communicating with their new pieces. So
before we go into Champ Select, I do want to give a shout out to our partner here at the Intel Extreme Masters. Masters, the Score Esports. If you're interested in following all the action here, all the EULCS, NALCS action it has, you know, news, results all across the world, go and check them out on Android app, iOS, and the website. They have a fantastic source of all that kind of information, all esports related as well. So, with big thanks to having them here at the Intel Extreme Masters. Now, moving on with this game specifically, what are you expecting? Do you think that when we get through that first draft phase, you're going to see H2k a different beast? Would you like to see a different? Because speaking of champ select, we're into it already.
There's Zed, but you got to do it. Red side Zed, that is too dangerous.
Wow, the respect there.
I mean, Mickey, I think especially for Febiven, he will say, I don't want to face against Mickey Zed. I don't want that to even happen.
It could also be that Febiven wants to go back towards that Syndra pick. He played it earlier in the day. Crumbs was talking about how Zed does have an option into it, which would then kind of reveal H2k's hand, so ROX can now adjust from here.
They probably wouldn't care too much about the Syndra. You can still even play Echo into it if you really want to, but the Elite Respect Band coming out, we did see ROX first rotation it in their earlier match today, and H2k obviously prioritized it as well. They hadn't played it the entire split, they picked it themselves, and now we're looking at whatever first pick they're going to make, which Graves and support pool could be the pick.
I want to quickly touch on the Malzahar and the Zyra ban. So this isn't a trend globally, but just in my conversation with the LPL teams, when they tend to ban Malzahar and Zyra, it's because they want an Ivern, and these two supports get a dominating pushing lane, and so it allows them to get pushing lanes elsewhere.
Okay, so draft phase already starting strongly for ROX Tigers. H2k prioritized the Rengar, which hasn't seen a huge amount of success as of yet, and Camille and Varus come through here for ROX on their first rotation.
Yeah, the Rengar success is... he's a level 6 jungler, right? You want the champion to have a lot of setup, and you need very decisive execution, which we hadn't seen from these players do. So now the Rengar and Shen combination, kind of that submarine idea, we need to see a lot more direction in their play towards lanes other than the Shen. If H2k can do this properly, the composition is once again go towards the bottom lane, kill that immobile Varus. Very easy. You are on a timer against Camille with Shen into the one of the best top laners right now. So H2k needs to really grab what they learned from the previous game and how the game took too long, apply it to this one, and they'll see success. And
ultimately, Rengar gets that much more powerful just because the Malzahar is banned. We saw how Sword Art was able to counter it out. And the beautiful thing about the Shen and Camille matchup is how his W interacts with her Q, and he can absorb a lot of her damage.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in the LCK as kind of an emerging counter that he can win after initial backs.
So if you're H2k now here, you haven't taken an AD on your first rotation, Varus is gone. Do ROX turn around and ban something like Jhin Ashe here, and then you start going down the ladder a little bit in terms of ADs on your sort of second rotation?
I mean, you could always pinch AD carry pool. I think it is really what matters most to them. Do they want to try to
mid lane or
I think for H2k, you pinch the support pool. Already 2 being taken out. Start removing support picks. You make sure that Karma has a really easy time. Particularly, you want to put ROX on supports that are tough to disengage from what Rengar and Shen can bring to the bottom lane. So a Tahm Kench ban would be very useful here to make sure that you have 2 targets that you can go on in the bottom lane as opposed to just one. Coming out right away.
The Prophet Crumb strikes again.
Really making it obvious that they want to go towards the bottom lane nonstop. We saw them do it twice in a row. They know what the game plan is. They can execute this really well and snowball nicely.
So do you think ROX runs off with a Jhin ban following this to say, okay, we're going to cut the top 3 AD carries because we've picked 1 and then we've banned 2, and it leaves H2k? Oh no, they're going to go for Sivir. So that actually would leave Jhin open if H2k want to pick it on the next rotation.
Varus has a strong matchup into Jhin.
Sure.
So I think that they might just feel comfortable with that matchup. Now, Key is kind of a weird support. He's known as a Bard player.
Right.
Bard obviously doesn't fit great into the meta, but there are other range supports available, including the Misfortune, the Thresh, the Nami, that won't just get entirely shut out by Karma.
That Echo ban, so I'm pretty sure this means that they really just want to go for that Syndra again.
Yeah.
A pick like Corki could be potentially in the mid lane, but it wouldn't really fit the 3 picks that have been banned so far, because you see that Sivir ban from ROX, and that kind of indicates we don't want ROX to go for like that speed comp that runs at us, which would work very well with the Syndra. So they're trying to gut that composition and steer H2k in a different direction.
Hell no. They go for the Thresh. That locked in straight away for ROX. And Key is going to be on a Thresh this time round.
And we saw what happened last game when G2 just lost track of Betty having experience advantage on Varus. Look for the same thing with Key. Key roams a lot. It doesn't matter what champions he's on. He's a Bard main through and through. He'll play Thresh like a Bard, which means that Sangyun can get that EXP advantage and catch Nuclear and Chase by surprise.
Looking for meeps when they aren't even there.
So do you think Syndra's... Yeah, Syndra looks like it's the lock-in for H2k here. I mean, you said it. You said the way that they were banning, the way that the Echo came through as well, you know, put Forbiven on something he's comfortable with. He'll be sat on the Syndra, but it does give now the advantage over to Mickey to say he has complete choice of what he wants to pick into this matchup. Admittedly, Syndra has decent matchups following the bans of Zed and Echo, but...
I'd say Corki, probably still. It also fits into their composition.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I like the Rise a little bit just because the Corki, I'm not a big fan of having a comp with double AD carries and then your jungler being a Kha'Zix. It's very difficult to set something up. And if they go with this, they will have a ton of damage, but a difficult time getting any setup.
He could ultimately go for the W Kha'Zix and go for more of that utility route that we've seen cropping up and being more potent. Because now they have so much disengage. So if you have the Camille ultimate Kha'Zix and then Thresh, like you have so much stall time for Varus and Corki to like back up in that big safety net.
Well, I'm seeing it more of when it comes to the 1-4. So Shen into Camille topside, and then you have that 4-man unit. Without the Thresh, Thresh will have to sit and play Lantern duty this entire time, which means that your front line of Varus, Corki, and Kha'Zix is going to be very susceptible to getting hit by either a deadly flourish from Jhin into a Syndra or vice versa, and that range and that damage is more than enough to pop any of the guys in that lineup when it comes down to the 1-4.
So, based on that draft phase, I mean, where are the win conditions lying for each side? You've got a fairly aggressive lineup coming through from ROX, and H2k kind of replicating what we saw from them earlier. They're not straying too far from the boat.
It was almost exactly the same comp that H2k ran earlier today. It's all about their cooldowns. It's all about how they synergize. We talked about like the submarine potential, that they're going to be bot lane focused, but that means that they cannot afford to use the Shin ultimate poorly. It has to be efficient, because if those cooldowns go down and you don't get anything for it, it's a long reset window.
Yet it gives me hope that they're going for the same composition, and they admitted on stage that they did make mistakes for that game. So they're trying to capitalize on it and say, we can play the same comp, we can do it right, and more importantly, it doesn't show anything, because any information that ROX might have had, they got from the first game, it's the exact same thing for this matchup now, which means that going into the following game, they will be at a complete blank slate for what to do in that next game, whereas H2k has already seen two relatively different drafts from ROX.
So very quickly before we go to break, I'm going to push you on predictions. Crumbs?
For this game one, I think H2k can take this one. The composition from ROX, to me, looks a little bit too tough to execute.
Sure.
Yeah, ROX is incredibly tough to execute. That said, if it ever gets ahead, it's devastating, especially if it's paired with Infernal Dragons. But I'm going to agree with Crumbs. I think H2k have a better rounded composition and more power points to work with, like good bridging power points.
We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen, but when we're back, Papa Smithy and Dracos will be taking you through this best of three. We'll be back very shortly.
Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. I'm Daniel Dracos, joined by Christopher Papa Smithy Smith, and we're about to get into our first game and our first best of 3, H2k versus ROX Tigers, taking to the Rift. So we're about to get into game. I gotta say, Korea versus Europe, I'm ready. I'm ready. Korea, Europe.
We're representing right here, so got to feel good. And the draft's an interesting one. There's a lot of power on the side of ROX Tigers. The moment Camille and Varus get taken on one side of the draft, like, okay, who done goofed in this situation? But I actually feel like, just like the analysts, that H2k have a lot of great answers to the questions that are being posed by ROX. Now, if ROX have a massive snowball, like they were able to execute in their game earlier today, all bets are off. But the scaling comp from H2k, and specifically, lots of single target engage against lots of shields from the likes of Shen and Karma, mean that the late game, I think, will be very, very tricky for ROX to hold a candle to H2k's comp.
And I'm curious to see how ROX will adapt to the Shen. We saw Hong Kong Esports really fail to do so in those first few early tower dives. We have to wonder if ROX give up the same advantage, will H2k fumble in the mid game as they did in that HKE set? I kind of have a lot of questions on both sides, but I mean, when we look at this early game, who do you think has the edge, and where do you think we need to be keeping our vision?
I mean, to me, I think ROX have a pretty big, significant edge in the early game. Obviously, the mid lane's very much a farm lane between the Syndra and the Corki. Varus Thresh has a lot of options. Karma's there to relieve a bit of pressure, but Varus matches up so well against Jhin in the laning phase. Not even Karma having the natural pushing advantage from support really counts for a lot, and Linderung's going to run wild early, you know, going to have a lot of options to push and roam as well. So I think ROX, if they can execute on this draft, get a massive lead, it's possible, but kind of Kongdu Monster in the same spot from my earlier series today, got the lead, and then it got to the point where they just couldn't stick the landing. That could very much happen here for ROX Tigers as well.
It's been a tournament of incredibly interesting results, and we're seeing this again. The Raptor Star coming in for the jungler. Haven't seen it done yet with Camille, but interesting adaptation from ROX.
So Camille has the AoE if you start W on the Kha'Zix you do as well, and because you get, crucially, you get the level 2 before you kill the big Raptor, it actually is the fastest clear to 2 and kind of the safest and healthiest of any of the options. So it does seem like that has become the standard. Grave starts very much similar. And the Raptors, if you have AoE on your top laner and your jungler, pretty straightforward.
And for now, Jankos keeping up in the jungle, but we saw how important it can be to have those small jungle leads, those small jungle advantages in the early game. Earlier sets today. Now, already in the bottom lane, we're seeing the war for the push. It's not about hitting the champions so early on. It's all about getting that early level 2.
And let's talk about the draft from ROX, because it's a return to the Corki for Mickey, as most played this season. You might think that's a significant positive, as Mickey's just going to slowly walk away from Jankos, but in reality, ROX has had a lot of struggles executing the draft they've picked here. They've had a lot of struggles trying to make it work, as Mickey takes a close trade with Forbiven. So the fact that they've taken an execution-heavy comp kind of has to be held in question. They can definitely play 4-1. If they get the Zed, if they get the Echo, both smartly banned away from H2k, ROX look convincing. But in these sort of siege comps with specific windows, so far it's eluded them. So them actually playing to their win conditions here would be a surprise. However, bot lane.
Bot lane already getting so aggressive. Che's going to tank the hook, though. Not quite what he wanted. He's able to just shield his way out of there. Nuclear going to get the crit. Sauce has to come in from Key to stop the damage output there. And H2k getting the better end of these trades on bottom side.
I mean, Key's been walking up a lot and ends up taking the brunt of the trades in bot lane. Has to use Exhaust to deal with the crit because he didn't want to fall low and draw. And a heal was drawn as well. We didn't even mention that. So 2 summoners blown for free because of Key being a bit too aggressive in the bot lane. The only pause I have and say, okay, ROX can't play this comp, kind of get over it, is that one of the things in an interview after their first win recently over BBQ, ROX Tigers, and specifically Mickey, said, we're more about playing for team comps and macro win conditions over just winning lanes. So they've kind of changed their game plan, and Songwon's been the big benefactor. Largely it's been on the Elise, but he's been invading a lot more. He's had the backup from his team. He hasn't looked like a servant for Mickey or a servant for the solo lanes. He's kind of had agency to do his own thing, and that's coincided with ROX getting better. So let's see if Songwon can have a good start here, because it seems like for now he has the support of his lane.
And so far keeping relatively even in terms of gold in the jungle, has placed down some additional vision on the top side as well. We kind of expected to see a lot of focus on the bottom side of the map. Is this top side vision going to tell us otherwise, or is this just to be safe?
It's one of those things where Linderung has so much lane control in the early game that leaving lane and putting down that ward at the Gromp is very straightforward for the Camille. So it's just one of those things where you get full information about Jankos in the top lane, although we say full information, he's actually not spotted at all. And Linderung's overextended here.
Moving forward, Adaptive Defenses is up, Taunt is going to land. Jankos has the red buff, this should be an easy pickup. Tactical Sweep goes in, Jankos trying to make it out. Hookshot wall dive to safety. Jankos looking for it, not going to find it, hungry for it, but Linderung walks away.
A really nice sidestep there. That was the one route that Jankos would take to top. So all that coverage was to allow Linderung to push up, overextend, if you will, and be right in the face of Shen. Jankos finds the one spot that doesn't quite layer the road. You see this from Key so often. He is so cocky to walk up and try and freeze the lane in front of enemies. He actually just died 2v1 in the BBQ series trying to do this because a Deadly Flourish hit and he was dead. This time he gets away with it. And obviously the greed gives them a freeze, gives them a very nice spot when it comes to the recall for the Varus, but every time he does it, you're like, you're going to pay for your life at least 50% of the time.
Oh, it's a sad story for Key, but it's been so often the story. Have to see if H2k want to punish it moving forward, if Key continues to take these kind of big risks.
But he's playing Thresh, and he won an MVP on this champion earlier this season. If you remember, Key is most famous for his Bard mechanics. Thresh mechanics, very, very similar when it comes to playmaking. He will go for the big plays in the mid lane.
Oh, nice timing on the level 6. Cleanses out. Mickey, first blood! Oh, solo kill comes in for Fevivin.
Yeah, the Excel wasn't going to be enough because of the taking of the cleanse, and Mickey plays on that raised edge. Fevivin, though.
Oh, the flash play, the follow-up. They're looking for a way out. Scatter the leak. Is it going to buy time? Here comes the Shen. Fevivin
Any more
wants to buy
damage?
time. Maybe going to get him under the tower. Doesn't find it in the end. Swangwon looking for a way out. Running forward, don't think they're going to get much of anything else. Key is there as well, but Ottawamne is hungry for blood. I don't think he can afford to take this fight. Now backing off, Karma's on the way. Are they going to get baited in? Looks like ROX backing off.
Yeah, cooldown's a bit long for Key. ROX spare the blushes of Mickey in the mid lane by picking up a kill. Will allow the Corki to get back to lane first. But the Fade, so nice purchase there. When you play on that razor's edge, that's what happens. Dracos, half the time you will see that. I almost said Achilles. Of course, I get my previous LMS casters mixed up sometimes.
Yes. And of course, what we talked about earlier with ROX kind of playing more to the comp, playing more to the late game, macro was Songwon gaining the benefits. But even now in this early game, even from the mistakes of Mickey, Songwon continues to be the benefactor. And you said this helped out and worked out for ROX in the past.
I mean, he was so defensive-minded previously because, you know, he was kind of in that Bengi mindset of, okay, warding for lanes, that he just wouldn't go on the front foot and invade outside of the Elise games. And the invades have been a lot more coordinated. He's had a lot more roams from Key, and also his solo lanes have looked better. So sure, he pushes in, has to back away, but it's the fact that he's on the front foot that gives a lot of excitement around a jungler who previously hadn't really had much of an identity since his debut earlier in 2016.
Steadily learning a lot about this kind of young ROX lineup. Not quite the same pedigree as the previous members, but steadily we learn more and more. And honestly, for some parts, do look to be improving over the course of this season.
I mean, you kind of forget, they used to be the Freak of Freaks who came 5th in both spring and summer season of 2016. So we're always on the cusp, made it to the gauntlet, but never got past the first stage. So they were not an 8th, 9th, 10th place team. They were so often entrenched in the middle of the pack, famously taking down SK Telecom in all 4 games of summer. So can get things together on occasion.
Jankos, decent damage coming out. Throw the hunts in there, but Kha'Zix is on the way as well. The slow rundown coming out. Mickey gonna try to heal up, flashes away, slows down with the fruit. It's a nice play, but he's not gonna make it out alive. Jankos grabs one, fight continues. Kha'Zix has he overextended. Gonna back out, gonna jump over the wall, not gonna get locked down in the end.
Didn't see the lantern come out from Key, may have been on cooldown, tried to go for the hook, but wasn't enough to keep alive Mickey, who now 0-2. Mickey ran the first game we saw from the ROX Tigers, but this is the other side of the coin when you play as aggressive as he does. And he's not on a champion that's as strong in the split push. It's not Echo with teleport. Sure, you have pseudo-global pressure with the package, you know, from time to time, but it certainly won't be the same playstyle that has launched ROX some recent competitive wins. And that's why you look back at the comp, you talk about the scaling advantage for H2k, and things going pretty perfectly for H2k in the early game.
Exactly what they wanted, mitigating the early power of ROX that we talked so much about. Even the bot lane, which we kind of expected to be abusing the power this far, is so heavily mitigated by the karma and the plays of Nuclear and Che. Additionally, Papa Smith, you brought up the package, and here Mickey has it now. Looks like he's trying to make a play of his own.
Though.
Jankos, heal up, red buff. Can't really afford to take this. Mickey's going to leap in. Shen's coming as well. Has Mickey overextended. The rest of the team is here. Shen looking for the taunt, is going to get it, but pulling them into the package. Extra damage. Jankos gets exhausted. The team shields him up. He's running away. He's ticking down, but he's going to make it out. And oh my God, H2k on the knife's edge.
And out of nowhere, Mickey is 0-3-0. He's known and famed on this Corki pick for one-man invades. And look, sometimes he comes up big. This time was spotted. There was that early call for Odoamne on the ultimate. Songwon may solo down an Ocean Drake, but no more for the ROX Tigers.
The consolation prize in the end, but the gold remains relatively the same. And it's just so close. The Shen comes in to save him. The Karma comes in to save him. And you got to feel for Mickey. Blood in his eyes. He wants the kill and just does not work out for him in the end.
And now, finds himself, sure, competitive in CS, but Corki's about hitting your timing. It's all about the oppressive Trinity Force timing. Will be forced into Hexdrinker after the Phage, so that timer is going to be, much more towards the 19 to 22 minute rather than the 14 minute that you would prefer in this scenario. And now Febevan just turns onto him.
So easy for him to go in there, knows that Mickey has no summoners available, has the cleanse for himself in case anything gets on top of him. He's pretty comfortable to continue dominating this lane, but lucky, Mickey still has the wave clear to stop any fights from happening.
The only way this draft works from ROX is if Mickey continues to assert pressure in the mid lane, they push up vision and allow the split push to be secured for Linderong. It's going to be difficult against the Shen, very soon to be Sunfire, going to be able to match the wave clear to some degree. But it's kind of the 4-1 dream here for ROX, and it's not Mickey on the Zed. It's not an assassin play from Mickey. It's Linderong who finds himself in that more unlikely position as Mickey.
Mickey, quite enough damage. Here comes Jankos once again. Songwon here, making sure he can deter the engage. Nice positioning coming in from the jungler. You can tell Jankos a little frustrated there. Wanted the kill. Tonko's in on the Linderang. Adaptive defenses come out. Now looking for the challenge. Hextech ultimatum goes in. Not going to be enough. Linderang almost no damage in that exchange. Has to be frustrating against the Shen.
Yeah, those trades are starting to go towards the Shen even pre-Sunfire Cave, which is kind of worrying. Doesn't even have the burning magic damage over time. Wave has been pretty good from the Shen as well, so it's not like the health bar on that turret is falling particularly low. So advantages all across the map for H2k, and with the scaling as well, Febevan.
Caught out, has the lantern, now throwing in, looking to get the backup. Jay is there as well. Febevan running for his life, has cleanse, has flash. Songwon, he's the one who may have gone too far in, but there's no mana for Febevan. Yanko's gonna flash over, he wants to keep it going. Box says no. Both teams eager to fight.
Yeah, nice roam from Key. You can see some of the reasons why he does have a fear thresh, ate some bans after that MVP performance, but no kill comes in, no snowball is established. 500 gold lead for the scaling comp in H2k. And sure, they'll push up some vision. Harrison Jin, wave clear off screen. He's looking for something, but Che is shadowing in the bot lane.
Always there to back him up. Nuko taking a lot of damage from the poke coming in. Not a ton of lethality for Songyun just yet. Dishing out decent damage nonetheless. Big thing, of course, here for H2k. Still have the pressure, or still losing the pressure on the bottom side of the map. At least for now. We talked about Linderong, and things look a little grim, Papa Smithy. Shen busts out the Spirit's Refuge, and it feels like Camille just can't do anything in these exchanges. I'm really wondering, when is the break point? When is Camille really going to reliably be able to be that side lane split pusher?
I mean, the item timings are really interesting for Camille versus Shen, because there's that big period in the mid game where Shen sustains and the split push doesn't work, but you hit 3 items and it feels like Linderong can start to ignore the Shen and push structures. Now he'll need vision for that, he'll need the rest of the lanes to be pushed up to give him some safety. Those are kind of the bigger question marks for me. But right now, as you can see pretty plainly, all-inning the Shen is not really an option. And someone hasn't pathed around top. You can gank the Shen. Okay, speaking of ganks.
Knows that there's no cleanse, knows that there's no flash. Flash hook, not going to connect. Bit of a misplay comes in from Key. H2k ready to respond. ROX walk away empty-handed yet again, but still so eager to force something on the map.
Well, it doesn't get better. That's kind of the issue, Dracos, that as the game goes on is, okay, turning onto Jankos.
Wants a little bit of heal. Powered Battle Roar, just going to take him to safety.
We're at the point in the game where you hit a hook, and you probably do pick up a kill. If Shen ultimate's up, maybe it's more difficult, but it's level 1 Shen ultimate's not the same respect. You get to level 3 Shen ult, you get 5 points into the Karma Shield, the Thresh hook hits, Thresh goes in, and 1,000 health is launched onto whoever member between the 2 shields. Then it's so much harder to get that single target damage to get a kill. Even isolation, even through some bursts from Corki and Varus, it's very difficult to burst that hard. So the window is now. That's why you see Thresh going for such aggressive plays. But the fact that he's investing his flash and getting nothing means that it goes back to a standstill, and a standstill suits only one team, and that's H2k.
And so often we see these over-aggressive plays come in from Thresh players or other, aggressive characters who look to engage. But honestly, the vision coming in from ROX has been so consistent, knowing where Jankos is going to be, knowing where the team is going to be, and it has allowed for Key to move into the jungle and make those riskier plays. When you throw that hook out, you're stunning yourself, and H2k, not too concerned. Trying to set up on Linderang once again. They've identified the win condition you talked about, and they want to shut it down. Oh, still taunted out. Let's get the wall dive through on the end. Not going to be enough. The ultimatum. Just a brief respite as he does go down in the end. Fevin picking up yet another kill.
He tries for some fancy footwork, was never actually going to change the eventuality. Just ends up with flash down himself. Suddenly the split push is going to be massive. Now, able to answer on the other side of the map. They've been able to... You saw the roam up from Jin into mid. So we're going to see the race for the first brick or the first turret blood, and it seems to be pretty handily won by ROX. This is the reality of the Varus lane. It's why you invest in that Varus. So sure, it's a trade of turrets, but it's the first real advantage that ROX has got all game.
And once again, we look at the compositional advantages. We say, oh, it's going to err on the side of H2k as we move further in the game, but the gold is just about dead even at this stage. And it looks like ROX might get aggressive here, pushing for another tower. They have the red buff. They're burning it down quite quickly.
It's the sort of advantage they need to push for. We talked about the comps to death. They need to snowball the game now before we start to see level 3 ultimate on Shen. They pick up the objectives. So 2 for 1, including first brick, is a pretty significant gold lead for the ROX Tigers. Helps specifically Mickey, who's super delayed on his Trinity Force, close the gap and get that item. Might have a CS lead, but nothing really else to speak of for Mickey.
Not at all where he wanted to be. Grabs the Sheen, which may help out in some of those laning trades, but overall, really solid play coming in from the ROX Tigers to turn that advantage around when they saw the pressure go down on top side. Plenty of teams would have backed off there, not be willing to tank the tower just to finish it out, but confidence coming in from the bottom lane and the jungler. Don't really know if it's going to be enough, though, because the global gold, while wonderful to have, you're not putting it onto that win condition. You're not putting it onto that Camille.
I just see push up really aggressively here, Febin.
Going forward. Jankos just going to get picked off in the jungle. Praise ROX for their jungle vision, but H2k got some of their own. Just make it look all too easy.
And I'm sure pretty much legitimately surprised Songwon because the game has been played. They just took 2 turrets and theoretically put down vision. We can see there's very limited ROX vision in enemy red side jungle, but it was the aggressive forward-facing vision. They're trying to take mid lane turret as well. Just get some sort of pressure, get it chunked down nonetheless.
ROX holding on for now. Varus and Camille on the top side. Can't imagine they'll dive the Shen quite yet. Ninja Tabby makes it all too easy for him to mitigate the damage to himself. The tower, not something he can reliably defend.
Just trying to accelerate the pace of the game. That's really all you can hope for, given how the game has gone for ROX. Mickey's still, he'll never stop. He'll always play this way. It's why he's so endearing. Plays one way, that's super aggressive.
And Gatling Gun is just such a Mickey ability. It only does damage when you're going forward. When you're facing your opponent eye to eye, Papa Smithy.
So all the time for Mickey then?
Yes, all the time. And it's kind of interesting to watch because we talk about the holes in the vision coming in from ROX, and that was how Jankos found a gank earlier, and it's not a major issue, but it has led to 2 smaller advantages for H2k. Could be an issue moving forward. Small trade.
Coming onto the Shen lane.
Hextech ultimatum. Kha'Zix's going in. They're going to trade tank on the tower. Odoamne may go down here. Not quite dead yet. Wall dive, hook shot. Doesn't matter. Ticks down in the end. ROX making plays on the top side of the map. H2k have been caught and exposed. They don't have enough members here to stop this from going down.
And they're going to go for another one of these slight dives. Doesn't really count because the minions actually stay alive. Rotating the Corki even pre-Trinity Force. 2 inner turrets down is actually accelerating the pace of the game in a way we couldn't have expected when Mickey was 0-3 before we hit 10 minutes. Good map movement though. They don't have as much defensive vision. They're going to meet Jankos and Che.
Looks like H2k may be the ones who are caught out, however. Jankos running for his life. Che is going to fall for sure. Jankos looking for a taxi to make it out to safety. Out comes the ultimate Songwon on the backside, but there's the defensive Shen'Al. Can they get him down? Jankos gonna live, and Fevabin's popping off with a killing spree. H2k maybe pushing for a bit more here, but ROX just gonna back off.
They have so much down on the sides of the map that there's now a lot of space for someone like Linderung to push up vision. They also have Thresh to be able to put down wards and look for picks. keeping it going pre-level 16 on Shen. I think level 16 without this gold lead or significantly bigger gold lead will kind of be the death knell for the comp from ROX Tigers, but credit to them for trying to make it work even without hitting timings. They're very much inventing new timings. They're not item timings, they're just map timings before things can really just completely go out of control. As we see the replay, one thing you don't want to watch in the replay is Key, who misses everything.
We're no strangers to that in Europe. Our Threshers have a sad track record.
Yeah, Thresh can win MVPs, but also look at the counter side of that. Item timings not being hit means that just surviving is Jankos. You know that kill would have been registered if there was a bit more AD on damage on the side of ROX. Back away. Structures continue to roll. It is 2 structure advantage for ROX.
About a 2K gold advantage as well, and as you said, not going to be enough to make up for their compositional disadvantage. However, enough of a lead right now to make them a threat. One that H2k is going to have to respect. Che doing his best to clear out the vision. ROX moving down to the bottom side, and then ready not only to take the Cloud Drake, but also to support Linderang if needed.
Yeah, they had the Ocean earlier, so Cloud would be the next Drake spawn over. Looks like they're going to be completely uncontested. I know Europe has famously never been a fan of the Cloud Drake, so staying with the memes right there. Pick onto Jankos.
Oh, Jankos caught out. Don't quite have the damage to lock him down. It's just going to get the little mini QSS there to walk away. Feven now pushing in on the top side. H2k using the push priority. They may have given up the Cloud Drake. They're getting pressure and vision down on the top side. ROX doing their best to clear it out now.
Feven didn't have the coverage to go for any ranged auto attacks onto the turret, even with the massive wave that he had. So far, it's not been H2k bringing up the vision. Now, they do have Odo Omne on the Shen to come in at any point.
We talked about what Europe likes and dislikes. Europe loves standing in bushes, hiding, and killing people. Papa Smithy. And they're not going to do it here, and that honestly makes me a little sad.
No Fnatic bush hijinks this game yet. You're right, a lot of the famous bush camps were European inventions. Oh!
I don't think Jankos wants that fight. That's the level 13 Mickey. He has the Triforce now. Little Kha'Zix waiting in the wings. Claws into spikes, the new standard. No wing resets till level 16. But now the battle for Baron Vision has already begun. It's only 22 minutes and the teams are looking at it, but Sangyun may be the first target. Nice Lantern comes in, mitigates the pressure there. Nuclear fire enough shots in frustration.
Waiting to see how Linderang will go. He's 2 levels above Shen, has been making the map.
Oh, Jankos out of nowhere. All comes in. Jankos is exhausted. He's going to go down, but Odo Omne still makes it to the middle of the team. He's disrupting everything. Spirit's Refuge more than enough. Nuclear trying to flash out, but there comes the Hextech ultimatum, and the ultimatum is death. Linderang going to get one back, though. Now moving forward, Odo Omne on the front line does get the taunt onto Mickey. Feven wants a little bit more of a kill. Key not going to connect the hook. In goes Feven. He wants another one. Dark Sphere, that's the double. Moving forward, maybe looking for more. Key a little too far. Dark Spear's coming in left and right. He's taunted up. He's dropped down. Odo gets one for himself, and they're just cleaning up house.
Feven in the ultimate comfort situation on the Syndra, hits every skill shot on the back of that fight to have the damage to take down Mickey. They get the bonus kills. It looked like ROX had the early lead, but look at this now. It's looking like it's going to be a brute force on the mid lane turret. And try and tank it up. Odo Omne probably could have taken another 3 or 4 shots, but the minion wave comes in. However, Varus' respawn might delay the inner turret by H2k.
Hail of arrows, and it's so often so close in this game when it comes to breaking down those towers, but ROX hold on. They may have lost out in the fight, but they remain ahead in the gold lead despite everything. Oh. Jay, a little scared.
But, you know, we've talked about it a lot today about what gold leads mean when it comes to scaling. The re-engage from Jankos, I think, took everyone a bit by surprise. He trades his life, in this case, for the Varus, which is so important given that Varus largely outranges a lot of what's on H2k. And sure, they get the kill, but all these kills are 1-for-1s. What I want you to watch is that Febiven, high health, and okay, we won't see it because there's going to be some action on screen, but Febiven from that point doesn't miss a single skill shot and allows them to clean up the game. And speaking of cleanup,
not going to be enough. Jankos cut down in an instant by ROX, and that is the pick that they wanted. Feven may not have missed anything. Well, ROX missed 1 or 2 there, but it's still more than enough to burn through Jankos' health bar. Bit of a brutal exchange. ROX now with a wait and bait of their own. Nuclear has the edge 9, maybe able to block 1. Ward taken down, playing the patience game. Vision for H2k, all but dark in the pit. Shots going in. Finds him in the pit, connects him to Songwon. That's pretty good. That's a lot of damage. Kha'Zix's taken out of the fight for now. Linderang looking for a way.
Looking for the range.
Has the Hextech ultimatum, tactical sweep. Not going to connect. Poking back and forth. Both teams looking to find an opening, looking to prod at each other. But no one giving way quite yet.
They're able to push up their vision pretty far, but not ready to start the Baron just yet. They obviously have close to no tankiness on this lineup, so Baron taking requires some picks. Got the single one, but not enough to actually force that objective. So that's why you see Linderang just returning to the split push mission in bot.
Yeah, massive wave on the top side. It's occupying Fevin as well. So two of the solo laners taken out of the fight. You see the 4v4 in mid lane as Shen starts to go in, potentially looking for the flank. The Jay's taking a ton of damage, and this Varus has absolutely come online. Gotta be careful forcing these fights.
But I like that H2k can look down this lineup and say, okay, you know, it's always a bit of a bluff around Baron. You're always looking at the turn versus the ability for the team to rush it down. It's not a Baron-taking team from ROX Tigers. With Linderang in the side lane, with no true tank, you know, Key with a bit of health but nothing else. Taking the Baron here is just the most unrealistic scenario, barring some sort of sneak at 20 minutes. So H2k can play around mid. Sure, they take a bit of poke from Varus, but losing 30% HP on one member won't make it more likely for Baron to be rushed down for ROX. So stay controlled. They have some spot vision. You know, they have a scrying orb that will be up very soon. So for now, no real ability for ROX to bait the fight they're looking for, and that's why they have to look for more incremental advantages like Mickey stealing away the red buff.
Have to see how major it is in the next fight, of course. Will make taking towers all the more easy if H2k make any mistakes. And Mickey feeling pretty good, has the package. Maybe this is a condition that ROX can fight under, but it's also good for taking blue buff, Papa Smithy. It's also good for
your glass half full
casters.
package hopefulness completely out the window. That was not the parcel you were looking for. That's when you're looking for that Amazon parcel and it's something from the government about your tax. Oh, feels bad, man.
Worst part is I live in Germany and I don't speak German, so when it's a letter like that, I'm like, oh, I can't read this and it could affect my life very dearly. Wonderful.
Can you feign ignorance when it's time for the tax return?
You know, that's the strategy I'm going with, but I haven't been confronted yet, nor do I know if I've been required to
Getting a message here on my phone from Riot Legal. They say something about shutting up. But you can talk about the legal things. It's fine.
It's
fine.
a brutal life. I'm like, I don't know if I can go any further with that, Papa Smithy. I don't know if I can follow you down that rabbit hole. They take care of me, our legal team. Well, ROX resetting now in the mid lane. Continue to have the gold advantage. Continue to have the poke necessary. There's just no way for them to force H2k group up here to succumb to this poke. Mid lane priority clearly in their favor, but without the threat of Baron, just does not amount to too much.
And the force, you know, is the kind of the word you have to describe for H2k, because it's not Ashe, right? It's Jhin with some situational force. It's Rengar with the all-in. And if they commit to Rengar Shen, they need to win a fight or they will lose significant objectives in a side lane. So the poke is registering for Mickey. Maybe we undersold just how strong the siege is with this Corki and Varus, because they're looking for the front door approach here on this mid lane turret.
Arrow goes wide from Varus, though. Does not find the ult. However, Fevin has to back off, has to give up. Jankos knows he's not spotted, has the ultimate. Thrill of the hunt. Will get spotted out on the ward. They know Jankos is in the wings waiting. Arrow to warn him to back off. Jankos going forward.
It's engage time.
Fight ready to start. Waits for the hook. Brilliant play from Jankos. He's forward. Shen's going to be in the back line. Out comes the redemption. Shots going in. Linderang's on the backside, though. Nuclear didn't see it coming, but the tactical sweep is not enough. The Camille is too far behind, and no one has died from H2k, but Odo will be the first in this one-for-one exchange.
And now no frontliners available on either side. Only the Rengars already leaped in. Was the all-in submarine approach from H2k with the Rengar Shen, but one-for-one, definitely not ideal. Nuclear, one of the few wave clear options they have chunked out, but ROX will back away. 2 Drakes will be a second cloud for them to make it 3. My Kingdom from an Infernal is definitely ringing out somewhere.
Mountain, something to let them threaten the Baron, but it will be another cloud. They'll be faster than ever as they run back and forth to place their vision.
And if there were outer turrets or even inner turrets on the map, that would actually be pretty consequential, because between Thresh with Moby Boots and, you know, a Lantern, you could get between lanes and take inner turrets really quickly, but it's only the inner turret in mid, which is going to be, I believe, like 1 hit, basically. We saw it almost fall to red buff, so when it comes to safe objectives and rotational play, not a lot of value there for the Cloud Drake in this game. Linderang, starting to get scary. Guardian Angel coming
Definitely.
soon.
I mean, Nuclear all too close to dying in that last fight, and really a solid flank. That could have been disaster for ROX. And this could be disaster for H2k because Yankos has been caught out. He can ult, but who is he going to get taken down? Heals up, runs for his life. Hook goes down onto Che. Hextech ultimatum. It's Bevavin who's been talked out. They don't have the damage to kill Lindarang. The Camille cleaning up as Mickey dishes out the damage. ROX now moving to the Baron, and this is disaster for H2k. 3 members have fallen.
You could argue that H2k at points were too disciplined in their last game. Now we see Rengar push up with no Shen ultimate available, no extra shields or HP. Smite's down, so's Forbidden. There should be a free Baron over to ROX Tigers.
Curtain Call may be the only tool, but it's desperation as one shot goes in, hoping maybe to take out a member. Just barely out of reach for H2k. It's so hard to watch because it's one mistake, and these are the small mistakes that we see these teams make in the early game, but when you're this far up, you cannot afford to be caught out like that.
I mean, a comp with so little force like the ROX Tigers needs a mistake to actually blow up or open a Baron. They need multiple picks. We already saw that one was nowhere near enough. But, you know, we're going to see the replay. The big story here is that Jankos doesn't have any vision on this side of the map. Face checks Songwon, who was well farmed, has some kills as well. And basically everything that comes after this is because Jankos is out of position. Nice teleport from Lindarang, straight onto a ward, but we wouldn't have seen these members overextended and baited into a fight if it wasn't for Jankos face checking the bot side of the map. They just really hadn't prepped at all. So you see all these objectives roll in that honestly should never have been on the menu for ROX Tigers, and out of nowhere, it's a 7,000 gold lead. They've got Baron, that was one of the hardest objectives for them to pick up, and one of the big reasons why siege comps can be stalled is if the enemy team gets Baron, because they've obviously got a better Baron team than a split-pushing Camille and no tank, but when they get the Baron and have the siege, it's pretty dirty to watch.
It's almost overwhelming now for H2k. We credit them with the compositional advantage, but when you're down 7k, when you're down a Baron buff, it just does not matter, and it's been ROX slowly but steadily building a gold lead that we thought would not matter, but then blowing it wide open off the back of a single mistake from Jankos on the side of H2k. ROX take the inhibitor, continue to push with confidence. They're looking to break the bottom side as well. H2k may just bleed out here if they do not find a fight soon.
Yeah, but forcing one against Baron is always so tricky. They're going to go for one, though.
Shot going out, Redemption going to heal back up the damage. Poke goes in from Bevavin. Lantern ready to disengage. Key may be the member who's going to get caught out. Locked up, does manage to hook onto Jay. Lindarang wants to go in. Bevavin takes so much damage to the backside, but Jankos is taken down Key. Lindarang, it could be next, but the ult from Bars is locking up the team. Oh, members popping left and right. The Kha'Zix tries to make it to safety. Nuclear has the crit. He's going to go for it. Odoamne flashes forward. Jankos is alive and well. That's member taken down. The crit, the only shot Nuclear has. Wide open window to come in once he burns it. Sangyun flashes forward. Mickey wants a little bit more. Jankos tries to lock it up, but ROX are playing this so patiently. And they may just look to end the game.
I don't know if they have the health buzz. They have Guardian Angel and Songwon. No, they think better of it. They're back away, but it's one team fight away. It's a couple of picks away from 3 members not being able to stop the siege from ROX Tigers, and it all looked so clean 15 minutes ago. It looked like H2k would hit that window, have the double shield comp. Thresh would only be engaging a team fight that H2k would inevitably win, but a couple of major mistakes, specifically the Jankos face check, has thrown the playbook out the window, and now H2k are kind of just waiting for ROX to look for a fight, and if they don't play it perfectly, the game's over.
Holding on for dear life, but we'll see how this fight exactly unfolded. Of course, Key, the first member to go down as Jankos burns the engage on him.
And look, Key's too far up, but they have the extra gold. They're 7,000 up. They go for the turn. And ROX fight as a unit. They're playing this comp that proved so difficult for them early in the season. Whether it's the change in shot calling, whether it's just the confidence of coming off the back of 2 series wins in a row, ROX are backing each other up. They look very solid. And even with Mickey, their superstar, the man who leads them in every category, having a very rough early game. It was 0-4 early in the game. He needed his teammates to stand up. They did. Now he's profiting from it. And ROX could easily enter this best of 3, 1 game up. They just find the right pick in the next 5 minutes.
It's so brutal to watch. You can see H2k not quite on the right, sort of the same page in that team fight. Odo flashing forward aggressively, but there's nothing there to back him up. Nothing there to come through, and H2k have maybe one more team fight, but at this stage, it might not even be that. 10k gold advantage, 2 inhibitors down. If it were any other team, I would assume a slow and systematic close, but you kind of just hold on to hope here in this best of 3 for H2k.
Slow and systematic's definitely not the ROX playbook, so there still is a world where they make a mistake here, where catch comes in and the rest start to roll down. The front line is still so tenuous. Guardian Angel on Songwon, the Thresh with a bit of health, but nothing really else to speak of. However, see how oppressive this siege is. Double inhibitor down. Tutorial victory is what ROX is looking for, and Odo Omni is just forced to stay under the turret, and with no Titanic Hydra, it takes a long time for him to kill these super minions.
And the 3-item breakpoint you talked about, Linderong, was not for the towers backing up the Shen, would be an easy 1v1. Devin takes a lot of damage. Curtain Call
now or never.
Looking for their last shot to win this back. It's just simply not enough in the end. Redemption nullifies the damage, nullifies the engagement. Jankos wants to find Linderong. They do lock him up. He has no GA, but the rest of ROX is here. Key looking for the hook, not going to connect it. Out comes the Hex-Tech ultimatum. Odoamne gets popped on the backside. ROX are making it all too easy with this clean close-up. Jankos going to drop as well. Linderong gets a little bit more. Febvin finds one in exchange, but it's simply not enough. Mickey, maybe a little too far forward, almost grabs Nuclear. ROX gonna take down the tower, gonna take down the Nexus, move up 1-0 in this series. H2k looking lost.
We respected the ROX Tigers for their ability to play the split push game. Echo, Zed, H2k clearly agreed with our assessment. So many targeted bans at the recent strategies that ROX had done well on. Sungwon's Elise banned away. Zed, Jace, and Echo all largely targeted specifically at the mid lane, and that's what forced the Corki to come out. Sure, the decent lane against Syndra as well, but it seemed like H2k had a great read on the ROX Tigers and what they've shown in the last two series. But the big story is the ROX Tigers have an extended playbook. They can visit comps that worked for other teams and pull them off in a way that their recent performances, you know, you do your VOD review, the team from 2 weeks ago would not have been able to execute as cleanly as they did in this series.
So hard to kind of prepare with slightly outdated information. We'll have to see how they adapt, but for more context on that series, we're going to send it over to the analyst desk to further break that one down.
Really wanted some EU pride to be able to stand here at the front of the analyst desk and say, H2k, you've done me proud. I can't. I mean, they looked so good in the early game. They looked like they were really starting to wind things up. Admittedly, they never had that gold lead, though. You know, ROX Tigers were always able to respond with those objectives, but where did it go wrong?
To be fair, they looked good because Mickey kept feeding, and they're like, all right, they're winning in kills, and they're slightly ahead in gold, but the CS was in ROX's favor, and the pressure was on them as well. If you notice, most of the lanes for ROX were pushing at all times. Mickey with the hyper aggression, topside Camille trying to be as aggressive as possible, and I think that ended up prompting H2k to play very defensive and reserved, kind of waiting for the aggression for ROX to make their own move, as opposed to the proactivity that you need to make with a composition like that.
And likewise, even when you know, Syndra's getting the solo kill on Mickey in that mid lane, he traded his flash, whereas Corki still retained his flash. So I actually think he retained both his summoner spells, and that forced Jankos to kind of sit in the wings, because suddenly you have this flashless Syndra that's going to be a target, and so Jankos is unable to kind of spread his assistance bottom or spread his assistance top. So even though like Febvin was winning in the 1v1, he still kind of became a liability in terms of how much resource and how much time he absorbed from his jungler.
And the liability is because the composition revolves so much around the side lane. Syndra is your girl to be the wave clear. She's sitting there clearing waves, bam, bam, making sure that mid lane is solid, that nobody's interrupting what is supposed to happen bottom side. But when all the focus goes towards that lane, Camille can scale. Bottom lane can roam and survive without any pressure. We didn't see a single Rengar gank with Shen in that bottom side, and it ended up being ROX getting that first brick in the bottom side, and they ended up getting 2 tier 2 turrets for absolutely no return from H2k.
And it goes back to this idea of a siege comp. Like the terminology of poke comp is like so outdated now. Like towers are the easiest global objective to snowball on because they give you the global gold, whereas the dragons are kind of like that invisible power that you will scale or use later on. And we see this in the LPL all the time, where like 3 teams will play poke or siege compositions, and the other teams will all play the big 5v5 or the cooldown compositions. And the issue that I have with this is that if you are not using that Shin ultimate aggressively, if you're using it defensively, if you mess up the execution on those cooldowns, you are so irrelevant while you're waiting for everything to reset, whereas the siege compositions are going to be relevant for like 99% of the game. The only time that they're really punished is when they're really far deep down. We've seen this both in the G2 game as well as the H2 game or H2k game, when they're trying to siege on inhibitors and Jin's like, aha, now is my time, gets to open up because they have so far to run. But otherwise it's just like, do I want to be relevant every 6 minutes when I'm waiting for that dragon fight or that baron fight, or every 2 minutes when I'm waiting for that Shin cooldown? Or do I want to be relevant every single time that there's a tower up, and that tower means snowball gold.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying there is playing these cooldown compositions is a little bit more risky because if you don't land those, those key moments, things can start to spiral backwards.
I think it's not risky, it's binary.
Yeah,
binary,
take, for instance, a moment what happened in the mid lane where 3 people came towards the mid lane. Kha'Zix, Thresh, Corki were fighting around, and Syndra ended up killing Corki, but the Shen ultimate came in to save Feviven. Eventually, they both, Feviven died, but Shen got away. That moment where Rengar ult was blown, where Shen ult was blown, only to save the life of Feviven, means that that composition no longer has any fuel. They're just like, they're little bursts, they're sprinting, as opposed to a composition like the one that ROX had that can always fight, they can always roam. And even the support is a champion that, even though a box missed like 90% of the times, he's not reliant on his ultimate. He's capable of fighting at any time, always providing some sort of tool to constantly fight, and that allows the team to push the trigger, make sure that they're always on the aggressive side that really matches the way that Mickey was playing. So, teams are now resetting, they're chatting with their coaches, getting ready for the next game of this series. We're going to cut to a short break, but when we're back, it could be the deciding match. ROX Tigers could find themselves in the semi-finals at the Spodek Arena.
You want to feel like a pro gamer? Wait no more. Greatness awaits you with Intel Extreme Masters certified PCs and notebooks. When you see unique IEM certified stickers on the outside, you will find high-grade components with Intel Core i5 and Core i7 processors inside. Every purchase includes in-game content and supports the total prize purse of Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. Feel like a pro.
Gillette, the best a man can get.
This is the Score Esports, the ultimate esports experience. The Score Esports brings you 24/7 news and scores, delivering the biggest stories and all the in-game updates and stats you care about in real time. The Score Esports takes you inside the ropes with the biggest players in every major event with exclusive video interviews, features, highlights, and analysis. Get all the non-stop action wherever you are, on your desktop or on the go, we've got you covered. The Score Esports is your home for everything League of Legends. Check it out now.
Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships. We are halfway through this series between H2k and ROX Tigers, and ROX Tigers are just one game away from making it to the Spodek Arena on Sunday. A semi-final place secured for them. I guess where we go from here is, what do H2k have to do to bring themselves back into this series? Where do I start?
I want to see them move away from Shin. Not that Odo's playing poorly on it. He's actually playing quite well. You know, they gave away the Camille. They took the Shin, knowing that they had the kind of the soft counter matchup. He did punish her quite heavily, but unfortunately, the rest of the team, the cohesion there, maybe a communication breakdown, they're not using it proactively. They're using it reactively, and it's costing them on the map. It cost them in their first game against Hong Kong Esports, and it cost them in their last game against ROX.
We're into Champion Select here. This is make or break now for H2k. Remember, they aren't out completely if they lose here. They do go to a decider match that will take place on Sunday, and it will be the resulting of the loser bracket final of Group A as well. So they will find out their opposition tomorrow. So H2k technically make it to the Spodek, but that is on the Saturday.
And this is a very interesting ban from H2k. Starting out with the Rengar, clearly known that the Asian teams really gave a damn about Rengar so far, and really exploited the weaknesses. As you see, they prioritized the Kazakhs more. And we were talking earlier about how the champions that don't rely on their ultimate can offer more consistent pressure and more plays throughout the game and really take advantage of that. And Kazakhs, compared to Rengar, not only does he have pretty equal assassination prowess, he also provides a much more presence in a team fight, while also a tremendous amount of utility. You can go Black Cleaver, evolve your spikes, really helps out a AD composition or any siege comp or any of these kind of pokey compositions with a lot of ADs.
So they are respecting the Camille this time round. She goes straight off that ban phase. Second ban here for H2k. Last ban, what are we expecting here? What is left open?
Kench.
Kench? You think the Jace comes through? Not respecting the Kench that much. Maybe we'll see it on the second ban phase if it doesn't get picked up by ROX on these first 3 picks.
I just always keep forgetting about Jace because he's been perma-banned the entire tournament.
But Varus making it through again.
But this is the thing we expect, and you know, Crumbs, you brought this up, the kind of the difference between the Western priority versus Eastern priority of Rengar. We saw last game H2k, you know, their priority pick was the Rengar. This time around, it's not available, but I feel like even if it was available, the Asian teams time and time again have shown that Varus is the priority pick, that they're fine to reach elsewhere for their jungle.
And I want to see H2k go with something like a Sivir. You know it can work into the Varus. You know it works great with the tanks topside, the Poppy, the Rumble. Not a tank, but works great with Sivir, or even the Maokai. Just make sure that you have a composition that lets you pull the trigger when you need to. Very straightforward. No need to set up any fancy flanks or any kind of timing windows that you will miss.
So at least locked in here for Jankos. And like you said, if they want to get the Sivir, they might have to get it on this rotation, because what we saw last time from ROX is they took that Sivir away, left the Jhin open, and they felt very comfortable playing into it.
But they can afford to grab it on their last pick.
That's what, so I meant on the first 3 rotations of picks. But they're confident with their Jhin. They're going to lock it in. And you can see the analysts, they are frowning.
I mean, Nuclear's playing well on the Gen. It still offers a lot. Again, it's not the greatest matchup into Varus in the 2v2 lane, but obviously they value its playmaking potential.
Sure.
It's still not like they're organizing themselves into a situation where they're waiting on all of those cooldowns. It helps them break the mid lane tower, so still not a terrible pick.
Hopefully, it is the change of pace that is necessary, though. Elise, not one of the most popular picks over in Europe, does mean that they have to be on the early game aggression non-stop. You really need to make use of this pick, otherwise it will fall flat. And if ROX is to craft a composition of Siege, which is already clearly obvious when you go with Graves, Varus, and Malzahar, Elise is gonna have to be making a lot of dive plays. Immobile picks, very squishy, so the onus is going to be on Jankos here to really make sure that something explodes in the early game, and if it does, it'll be so refreshing to see H2k kind of have a new lease on life.
Where do you think this final pick on this rotation is? Do you just match with a support, for instance, so you don't have that banned away, and then you just get the sort of the top lane, mid lane duel in the second ban
if
phase?
If bot lane priority push is important to you, I expect that Kench or Karma will be pinched in the second rotation of bans.
So they're putting priority, not yet locked in, but they're looking like they're thinking about a top lane pick of Maokai. There it is, locked in. Maokai comes in straight away for H2k Oddawamne, moving away from the Shen. They've said, okay, I'm done with the Shen now. I just want to dive. I want to make plays that are a little bit more consistent.
Exactly, but it's the exact same thing. Instead of pressing the R button, you get to press the W button, but it's all about those flanks.
Yeah.
And it's a full-on team fight because Elise and Maokai lose a lot of kill pressure because they're both magic damage champions, and so the atomization in the top lane becomes very easy to survive that combination. So similar to the composition where they had the Shen and Ashe that revolves around going bottom, this time around they can be a little bit more flexible, offer a little bit more of group plays, and really work as a 5-on-5 unit and not have to set up multiple lanes at a time before going for an engage.
Second ban phase comes through. Misfortune, the pick-off here for ROX. And it looks like it's Fiora instantaneously banned by H2k straight away. And now they're really thinking about this next ban of this phase.
Well, the Fiora and the Shen really make a lot of sense. Two matchups that want to split push against the Maokai. And what this does is that H2k is forcing ROX's hand to pick a top laner that will also have to group so that both teams are just going 5-on-5 head-on who can win in this scenario, as opposed to the 1-4 that could split up H2k as they have been previously and dismantled.
Do you think Fabiven rounds up with an Orianna with this composition? Does it seem, or he could go back towards the Syndra? I mean, they've still got to pick their mid lane and their support right now.
I mean, he's playing so well on the Syndra that you could go back to it. It's also kind of different breaking points for both of the champions. Syndra is going to peak a little bit earlier, especially on level 6, and how that can immediately translate into jungle pressure, whereas Orianna is pretty reliant on those 3 items before she like really starts popping off.
So I actually have a faint hope that this is actually not an AP mid laner and that it goes to be a Zed pick.
Oh, okay.
The comp makes a tremendous amount of sense going with Zed, and having an Orianna would really overload your comp with magic damage, considering that you have Karma as well as your support. And this is beautiful. Zed right here would be wonderful. You can go into a great matchup into Syndra. It has tremendous synergy with Elise, with Maokai and Karma. This pick could really break this game apart, but unfortunately it relies on so much confidence right now. Fabiven has been playing well, but does the team really put that much? Oh my, geez, this is like Zed play where you cannot pass up on this opportunity. GP as well.
Every single one of those targets is viable.
This is a godly game for Zed.
I mean, if Crumbs is right, H2k have left it to their very last pick to make this decision.
Okay.
Okay, Nautilus comes through, slightly less so.
It's still good. It's still a great Zed game.
So you think that it makes sense to leave the mid lane pick all the way to the end. If you want to lock in something like Zed, it gives you the best options to assess.
Oh, boring. No.
It's so boring.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is he going to do it?
Is he going to do it?
He's taking Ignite. It's done. It's done already.
Come on, Fabiven, step forward.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Finally.
There we go. Zed gets locked in. Prophet Crumbs strikes once again. And it looks like we're going to see Fabiven playing that mid lane assassin, like you said, not overloading the composition with magic damage, gives you split push pressure, has a good 1v1 in some cases versus the Syndra. So I think we're going to be looking forward to an exciting game here.
The dive pressure and capabilities out of H2k is disgusting. The issue that I have for them is if you look at ROX's side lanes in terms of push priority, Nautilus has push priority over Maokai, and Varus and Malzahar, depending on how they play the lane, can also get push priority on Jhin Karma.
Which means they'll have to keep the composure and really make sure that they don't fall into the trap of somebody feeding, and that means they have to really just go on that. They have to stick by their plays. It doesn't matter how ridiculous these invades are. If they stick to their plays and make sure they snowball that, you got Graves and Varus, 2 great targets for you to always be killing. This could really be the game that H2k needed.
Now, you both went for H2k last time. This is going to be the hard part now because ROX have got that game under their belt, and I'm going to put the pressure on you two. I want to hear your predictions.
Okay, unfortunately, even though I like what H2k did to adjust their draft, I'm going to go with ROX. I think that they're playing a cleaner game. I think they look more confident in how they're being decisive on the map.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Like before we were chatting, we were thinking this really looks like ROX has a hold on this, and the morale on H2k doesn't really seem to be there to match what the composition is. It looks awesome. The previous comp also looked great for H2k for what they were trying to do. So if we really remove that and just apply it to their play, I think ROX will have this.
That said, this is still good news for EU fans in the home crowd because Crumbs and I have been wrong in like every single prediction. So even though we picked ROX, all the EU guys should be going, yes, our team will finally win.
We did it.
I'm so glad I've not been making predictions because you can't throw that on me. Anyway, we're going to a very short break before the game gets started, and when we're back, it will be Papa Smithy and Dracos again. Could this be ROX making it to the Spodek on Sunday? We'll see.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Game 2 between ROX Tigers and H2k. We praised the compositional build coming in from H2k in Game 1, but it was not enough to stop the Tigers from running them down, and single small mistakes ended up being what decided that game. Here in Game 2, H2k have tried a bit of a different gambit. Zed coming into the mid lane, I think, has to be our big talking point.
I mean, it is really much a talking point because ROX showed how to play Zed in their series against BBQ that they won on Sunday just a few days ago. They just completely snowballed the game through, and there was no hope for BBQ once the Zed got started. That could certainly happen here for H2k. Very favorable lane matchup, especially after 6 for Mickey, for Bivin, because able to pop Mickey's ultimate. So it's the sort of game where we saw the early draft at least, I'm like, I wonder where they're going to go with this draft. Where it ended up is certainly a draft that can work for H2k, and the snowball here, that this could be the 26-minute game that we really have been denied all day.
Of course, it is H2k on the red side, ROX Tigers on the blue. An explosive game to be sure, but we have to say, if ROX are the team to bring out the Zed, do they now know exactly how to play against it? Or is Mickey going to struggle here in this mid lane?
I mean, there's not enough tools, I think, Dracos. Once you get a last pick Zed into so many favorable options, it's the sort of game where Zed can really run away with it as a champion himself, because like the analyst desk was saying, target selection here is anyone other than Linderong in many ways for Bivin. So Felice managed to go for the invades that Songwon was pulling off in his first series of the day. If the duo basically of Jankos and Bivin get on top of Songwon and Mickey, there's just no turning around, it feels like, barring a massive misplay on the side of H2k.
I've seen 1 or 2 of those already. Interesting adaptation coming in here from ROX, trying to deny the early Raptor start that we've seen become popularized over the course of this tournament. Someone's going to have to tank those saplings.
We're watching this, all 3 are placed down.
Oh, going to contest it, taking some of the experience back. Yanko smites it out. Early jungle fight coming through. They're going to look to take the red buff as well.
Look at this. This is actually a pre-planned strategy. So 4 Voidlings onto the red buff means that Sungyun will actually enter lane with red as they take the enemy red, chunking out Jankos. Pre-planned strategy by ROX Tigers. And the cadence of this game, which looks so simple, suddenly it looks like Jankos will be denied 2 buffs, significantly behind. This is really cool to see, and the first really big adaptation we've seen in the early game.
And this is absolutely crazy coming in from ROX Tigers, because we talked about how crucial this release has to be. Europe hasn't shown it too much yet. Jankos, kind of the big adopter outside of Amazing. But ROX have the experience against this pick, and they're shutting it down.
Early game feels so solved in this meta. Very defensive starts. You look for the ward. You try to find information about one camp and then map where the enemy jungler is. And then Jankos realizes he's not going to get to his red, sees Sungyun enter with red. He's like, oh crap. I've definitely been 3 buffed. I'm definitely significantly behind in terms of buffs. And now invading the level 3 Elise, which can start the snowball, get this game going, is going to be delayed. Sure, probably not going to fall into a level disadvantage, but the amount of pressure that's been relieved from the solo lanes here is immense. Making a display under the enemy turret, not respecting, at least looking for an early gank. Nautilus as well, super pushed in as you can on the Nautilus versus the Maokai.
And despite all that, Jankos still going to push in for a little bit of deeper vision and may look to find an opportunity here against Mickey.
No cleanse, remember. Exhaust on the Syndra.
Playing towards the top side of the map, though, will stop Jankos from finding an impact there. Playing towards the side with his jungler. This is clean play coming in from Kongdu here in the early game.
ROX Tigers even, my friend.
ROX
Different
Tigers.
Korean
Oh, wow.
team. But the smart thing here, and the reason why we're noting that he's playing to the top side of the mid lane is, where else could Jankos go? There's no camps anywhere else on the map. He needs to be bot side and looking for a gank. Speaking of ganks, we're going all in.
So much damage there from the Graves, but Odoamne is healing up for now. Liderang taking a little bit of damage. I don't think they're going to be able to get
the turret.
Body blocked by the turret. Odoamne, those are some smart plays. We talked about mitigating the pressure. Well, Graves showing up is going to mitigate some of that. Jankos flashes in, Cocoon lands. They're looking to get first blood for Bevy, and that's going to come through. Jankos picks it up.
So important that after the course of events, the disaster at level 1, H2k avoid the first blood on top and actually secure it in the mid lane. Sungwon going to try and just clear his camps without a lot of health. Odoamne popped damage from the Graves and was so smart at keeping the turret between at all times. He just walks up to Forbidden. We've seen Key walk up to people and might have done it again.
Exhaust comes out. Key, what are you doing? Flashes the Cocoon.
Key loves holding lanes, apparently even the mid lane in front of 2 people. Uses both summoners for no gain whatsoever.
Trying to hold all the cooldowns from an Elise and a Zed as well, Papa Smee. I think we could put that one in the not so good column.
That was actually pretty funny. So on the screen there, we saw the hook actually get popped by Odoamne going on for a twisted advance. This game has already got so much going on for it. We had a really creative start that put ROX in the driver's seat, and then a failed gank top lane while Jankos went for kind of the required gank. He didn't have camp spawned. He'd been 3 buffed. It was either successfully get that gank off or fall behind and maybe never be able to re-invade if Syndra keeps pushing the way she was. So picking up that gank has relieved a lot of pressure from H2k, and you see why. They've got a single kill, they've got first blood, but they're behind in gold because of the lead in the jungle and just how much pressure was relieved previously from the lane.
So many pushing lanes in their favor, and it's brutal to play against. Have to praise Odoamne for the excellent fancy footwork coming in on to stop the tower dive. Key, despite the mistakes in the mid lane, continues to play aggressive with the vision, but he's only level 3 here.
With no summoners.
It's a similar story for Che. This is not at all where they want the Malzahar to be. Bevan has to be safe. Sauce goes down, decent damage, jumps over the wall. Key there as well, and it's clear that ROX have identified the weakness in the mid lane now that Feviven's got a lead, and they're trying to shut it down.
So we haven't really talked about how ROX win. You identified, I think you hit the nail on the head, Dracos. Pushing lanes in every lane means that you basically prey on the lack of wave clear. Jin's your best wave clear, and he's definitely the lowest of the meta AD carries. You push, you take turrets, but if you get collapsed on...
Oh, not gonna be enough. Jankos grabs another kill. Feviven grabs another assist. Not even level 6 yet. So good to start. Jankos goes for the early Sork shoes as well, so it's just even easier for him to make his presence known on the map. And this is probably the worst thing that could happen to ROX here in the early game.
And look, if you get that gank up off top, you miss the gank in mid lane, and then you go for that invade, the pressure probably would have been there. But the swing has started, the necessary swing for H2k. They do not want to allow ROX to just rotate around the lanes, prey upon their lack of wave clear, and just mean that there's no safe time for Forbidden to wave clear, for Forbidden to split push, force him to be on wave clear duty in a lane rather than actually making proactive plays. Jankos has been his own savior in getting out of the hole he started this game in, and now it's all up in the air, which is exactly where we like it to be, because this could be a really exciting game after some very controlled displays on the Rift.
Of course, have to see what Jankos could do now, because he has been the benefactor of those 2 kills, and I feel like the pressure is on him, because Fevin, yes, he's got the 2 assists, he's happy to have that, but he's down so far in CS right now that I don't think it makes up for the gold differential, but Jankos takes a camp and just looks to rinse and repeat, making that pressure down on the top side.
Yeah, someone's being smart. He knows that because of the blue buff start, we're going to see Jankos force himself onto the red buff to not lose it again. That's why he was on blue, but now turret dive time.
Locked up. Nuclear could be the one in trouble. No level 6 coming in, and the Graves does so much damage. Che flashing to safety. The tower used to block.
In mid lane.
Mickey's been caught out alone. Deathmark spin, spin, spin. Pop goes Mickey. All too easy at this stage. Curtain call comes out looking for the 4th shot, and somebody has to die, and it's fumble after fumble from the ROX Tigers.
So near yet so far, and H2k the benefactor in every lane. All the good work undone. It's even going to be Drake on top of everything, and ROX had a plan. Damn, it looked good at level 1, but it's completely gone out the window 7 minutes later.
A single outplay on the top side from Ottawamne explodes into an advantage for H2k, and they just keep the ball rolling. Ocean Drake dropping at 8 minutes as well. A happy addition to this team. And this looks like the start that H2k wanted. This is exactly what they needed from this composition, and despite everything ROX did to shut it down, still found a way to get it started.
And Jankos having the kills is so perfect from the perspective of H2k. Sometimes loading kills on the Elise just ends up actually hurting your lanes, but given that everyone wants to push up and force the Zed to be accountable, then a Sorcerer's Shoes Rush Elise is going to be the only unaccountable person on the Rift and actually be able to pick up the kills inside lanes as well. So they're in a perfect spot. Sure, they'll eventually be able to rotate the Zed into a side lane and be happy with that. But for now, all eyes on Jankos as everything's turned into gold after he started with a lump of coal.
Everything he needed, 2-0. For a bit more wards in the inventory, working ever closer. Picks up the Aether Wisp as well, so he's got the damage and the movement speed quite early in the game. And this landing phase just gets easier for Fevin as well. Beneficiary of the blue buff. Not something we always see for the Zed, but happy to give him the cooldown.
Someone.
Oh no. Flash over the wall. Fevin just going to back off. This is the Zed nightmare.
That was almost burst down with Deathmark on cooldown.
Almost didn't need the Deathmark. Could have flash autoed, but holds back. And this is the raw power that Fevin has right now. Jankos.
If he'd gone for a shallow ward, he might have actually been able to kill him before the last half second. So never mind. Gets the information he wanted. Could be pretty clear about what the pathing is from Songwon, who invariably re-enter his topside jungle.
And this is terrifying for ROX. You have to look. How can they walk into this jungle? There is a fed Elise, a fed Zed waiting to kill anyone and everyone who wants to roam through there. And for the bottom lane, those members go missing, and you just back up.
Yeah, Zed goes missing, Elise perennially missing. In the mid lane, it's going to go for an all-in.
Going forward, important that he lands the shuriken, only connects one. Pop goes in, Fevin getting locked up by the depth charge, but Jankos now moving on to Lindarang. TP coming in from the Maokai. Maybe look for the disengage. Ottawamne flashes forward. This may be a bit too much. Ottawamne the only man on the front lines. Che is there as well, but they don't have the damage to cut through the ROX Tigers.
Nice walk down from Nautilus, draws a teleport and a flash out of Ottawamne. So one of the few scenarios after level 1 the ROX have come up ahead in any fashion. And Lindarang predictably does have the push in top lane, but as you say, if ever Forbidden is unleashed on the map alongside Jankos, Varus, all these lanes are only comfortable pushing on the side of ROX Tigers, and that's more space for the Zed and Elise to come and assassinate some dreams.
And this is the kind of the solo queue nightmare that we so rarely see in competitive, where it's any overextended lane is a vulnerable gank target. In competitive, it's so often about pressure, but when you got that fed Zed, you get to play by whatever rules you want.
Damage hits. They might be looking for this.
Curtain call, flash to the side, still gets snared, still locked down. 2 shots connect. Che now going to be the one to look for it. Not quite enough damage.
It wasn't in exhaust range, didn't have ignites, they won't secure the kill. But you're right, I mean, we see so much control mage play that you don't often have mid lane problems spilling into other lanes like you did in Season 3 when Ari would clear mid and go and roam into other lanes with DFG. That's not the world anymore. But with Zed back in the meta, with Elise as far ahead as it is, the problems are definitely spilling into other lanes because after the level 1, they were comfortable to push up. Now suddenly, they will second guess every movement that takes them more than halfway across their lane because even in short lanes, Forbidden and Jankos shows up and you're dead.
And really, this is just exactly what we wanted to see from Jankos. Forbidden already had a phenomenal game last series, but Jankos really struggled in a few moments there. And it's going to be Mickey who may struggle now.
Really big scat of the week there, actually, to knock away Jankos. Forbidden had everything up, including Flash, but was denied.
Ready to go in. Good patience, doesn't go under tower, knows better than to risk too much here. Exhaust is up and available for Mickey, even if he doesn't have the Flash. Zed takes up home in the mid lane, but since he's spotted on the map, it gives ROX the freedom to get down a little bit more vision, a little bit more control here. Evan, though, now with push priority, and ROX is going to have to be careful. Songwon playing with fire right now when he runs into the Dragon Pit. If Evan spots him, he could just very well be dead.
That's the little credit that you have to give ROX, is they're still playing, pushing up. They're still taking risks because you could understand being petrified with fear, hanging back, and then just playing into the hand of H2k. But then a gold lead starts to open up. It's only 1,000 with 4 kills because they've had the push pressure and they've had the CS lead in multiple lanes. That won't sustain. And with the way the game is going, items starting to be completed on specifically Febiven, they'll have to show a lot more respect. But for now, they're fighting a fight they can take. Who knows how long they'll actually be competitive in those fights, because it just seems to be getting better and better for H2k.
And last time, that was the story as well. And it was H2k who threw it all away. And will they do the same here?
Going for the all in.
Let's get a little bit down. Exhaust drops. Decent damage dish back out. Nice shot. Snaps back to the shadow. Makes it out to safety.
And Shuriken on the backside to confirm the kill. Was a really close one. You know, Forbidden made his name on the international scene with those plays against Faker so long ago now at 2015 MSI. Zed back in the meta. Forbidden looking to make an impression on H2k and looking pretty dapper as he does it.
Maybe looking to make another historic performance here. Killing Mickey, not quite the same as taking down Faker, but finding a necessary win for EU. Especially after the loss of G2, all too important. And really at this stage of the game, I feel like ROX are already kind of starting to run out of options. They have the wave pressure in 1 or 2 lanes, but the Maokai Nautilus not quite as close as it once was. Sangyun Ki starting to struggle here. You can see the CS advantage built up by Nuclear.
It's only really with assassins like Zed that push priority becomes a bad thing. But in this game, playing the game plan or the laning pattern that works best for Nautilus, Syndra, and Varus actually opens up the roams from Forbidden. So it's just really difficult to play when the innate playstyle that you picked for that was looking so good at level 1 when none of this would have happened is suddenly, you know, an Achilles heel for the ROX Tigers. So they're going to have to really think through things, look for mistakes. You know, they were gifted some mistakes in game 1, but now it's kind of H2k's game to control. No way to counter this Drake. They can't walk up when Zed's not on the map, although he is just wave clearing in mid. At least pretty strong in their own right. Second Drake over to H2k.
Double Ocean stacked in their favor as Jankos making his presence known on the bottom side. Febiven's moving down, and they just do not have the tools to stop him. Mickey tried to find his own way, but has to watch each and every bush for the potential Zed collapse. Febiven just backs off. ROX consistently now on the back foot. I think H2k being in the driver's seat, this is good. We wanted to see them build an early lead, but they've been able to build early leads in the past. And now the question for me is, can they maintain it? Are they going to throw it away again? Because for all intents and purposes, this should be their game to win.
It just feels like ROX don't necessarily have the tools to be able to resist the lead that H2k's put up. And the reason why I say that is that, you know, consider as we flow forward, we're going to have must fight for objectives. Things like Baron and the Elder Dragon. The only person who can face check to put down wards is Linderung. He's the only person who's not a target for the Zed. So putting down vision, defensive vision, is going to be almost impossible for ROX. They're going to be dictated by the power of the assassins on H2k's side. So it just feels like, just like those double AD Ivern comps were on 7.2, H2k would have to make a pretty monumental mistake to not take this one down.
Now backing off, Linderung's the man in trouble. Wamne not going to get locked up, but Jankos will still suffer the depth charge. And I'd say, Papa Smithy, that sounds just like last game. Once again, this sounds like H2k. They just got to wait. They just can't let ROX get a lead. This time it's H2k. There's no way. You can throw it away. You
if you're Prolly and you're looking back at game one, you've only got a couple of minutes between series, it's steady as she goes. H2k were in the driver's seat in terms of scaling. They delayed a lot of the power spikes. It looked like Trinity Force spikes on the side of ROX would be irrelevant, and they kind of took it too far. Got caught a couple of times, and the timings became irrelevant. They lost the game. They're in such a calm, comfortable position. It's so hard for ROX to trade because they're so far behind. As we see, a cool replay here. So let's look at if there was actually the damage. There was, you see. It actually required the shuriken. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Nothing.
Zed dance moves,
Yeah,
huh?
nothing more beautiful to watch than some crisp Zed play.
And we thought that would be Mickey. We were both sitting here saying, come on, some Mickey Zed, some Mickey Zed.
Mickey Zed.
I gotta say, Viv and Zed's looking like a pretty consolation
And H2k played Spoil Sport game one, taking those assassin picks away from him, but this time around they get them in their own hands, ending the draft out with the Zed.
And that's why you smile, because consider the draft in game one. The bans included Jace, Zed, Echo, all big Mickey champions. Basically, they were like, you can't have the stuff that makes you good. And ROX like, okay, we can play standard. We played the Corky comp. Sure, we got a bit fortunate, but we stuck the landing. We won the game. H2k went standard this game. They're the ones actually playing the curveballs, which is the Zed last pick, and they're profiting for it. So I like fortune favoring the bold. I like actually pushing for some unique stuff. And with kind of a lot of the must-ban red side champions being toned down on 7.3, we're seeing the value of last pick, I would say, in games like this.
We've seen it change compositions with support picks. We're seeing it exploit compositions now with the Zed pick. And for Mickey, has to feel rough. Has the Zhonya's finally. That'll mitigate a lot of the kill pressure.
It feels so bad, though. Okay, there's cooldown reduction, but nothing more. Okay, they're shining on Che.
Staring contest goes down. Doesn't have enough damage to get it back. But meanwhile, Bevan's going in. He's exhausted. He wants to snap back.
Oh,
Yanko comes over the wall. He's looking to get one. Can he get onto Mickey as well? Knock back. Nautilus goes in. Elise goes up. Yankos comes down. Key not going to grab it, but is going to grab it. The arrow over the wall, all too helpful.
3 for 2. Odoamne might get a turret. We'll see if there can be an answering turret from ROX. This time, even though caught in transition, able to take down Febiven. First time that these rotational plays haven't worked for H2k since the early game. Mid lane turret. We're probably going to see, honestly, Nuclear park himself in mid. It's probably going to be Zed starting that split push, but I can see you as an EU caster shaking your head a little bit because it all looked so clean a moment ago, and now suddenly the seeds of doubt begin.
They get my hopes up, Papa Smithy. Every time I get excited. It's not over yet, but it's over for Che in that instance.
Che went for a walk, but what happened here? So we missed the genesis of how this started. I'm imagining that Zed went to cut down to bottom face check Graves, and that's when Syndra came along.
Ooh, nice arrow coming in.
The trade's not working out for H2k that time.
Not at all what they needed in the exchange. And once again, it hasn't lost them the game by any means. Zed is still strong. Zed can still 1v1 just about everyone on the enemy team, but these are the little moments we talk about when it comes to H2k. They look like a top team 90% of the game. But that 10%, man, throwing it all away.
What they need to do is really up their vision around specifically the bot lane. Finally, we're seeing Zed make his first trip to the bot lane. Taking out this outer turret gives Zed the space he needs to be able to put on the split push pressure that we know the Zed pick to give, but that's not happened yet. The turret's still alive, therefore that's why ROX are pushing up, trying to contest vision. No one's here. This turret will die. They gave up on it. Was very low. But, it was a fight around the vision. Che walked up, and that's what led to the series of events that took down H2k in that last setup. Speaking of setups,
Curtain call goes in.
Optimistic
goes
here.
Wide. Second. Curtain's closed. No one goes down.
Don't think anyone was trying to peek out the curtain, though, so it didn't really close very much.
Not much of a performance there, but does get them pressure in the mid lane. Pushes Miski back. Odoamne trying to set this one off. That's a little aggressive. Odoamne locked up to the tower. The team's not there. They need to hit the tower. Crit will get it. But Odo's going to trade his life in the end. Vevin on the way up.
Kill for an objective, but kind of a strange one, given how things were. It's not like Forbidden was getting work done on the bot lane turret. Mountain Drake spawns, but for now, Linderung is in top with no teleport, so doesn't look like ROX will take a bonus objective here.
Mickey backs off. Mickey heads to bottom lane to block Febiven from pushing any further, but it does free up Yankos. Try to take the Mountain Drake. Not a whole ton of tools to contest. Graves is on the top side. Just kind of some oddball plays coming out here. I'm really not sure what the thought process is from H2k, but clearly desperate to get a larger lead than they have.
It didn't feel like they needed to invest Odoamne's entire health bar to pick up the outer mid lane turret, and they're more about splitting the map for Zed to roam rather than taking that outer turret. But regardless, kill for what ends up being a Drake and an outer mid lane turret is not the worst trade, although the turret is answered in top. You don't hate this if you're H2k. Again, it's more space for Zed, who was the main benefactor of the early game, to visit side lanes. There's been no latitude for Linderung to pick up armor, so even though he's pretty tanky, he finishes his first item of armor in Sunfire. He may not be a target for the Zed, but he's not exactly impervious to the Zed yet either.
Of course, the later it gets, maybe a Black Cleaver, maybe something else to kind of mitigate the armor stacking coming in for Linderung. But I want to talk about Baron. We're getting closer to the point in the game where it might be on the table, and last time we're like, it is not an option for ROX, and it took a colossal mistake from H2k to make it an option. Is it an option for H2k now?
Where the game sits right now, I would say no. Although if you can start getting pressure onto Linderung and the top side, that'd be massive. Get him down as low as possible. He doesn't have the ward coverage to actually make the pushing plays he wants to, and ward coverage doubles up for allowing Zed to split push and also Baron vision. So a setup here maybe is, speaking of setups.
That's a ton of damage. Goes in, goes out, does get locked down. They're trying to get one back. Jankos may have given his life in the exchange. Not going to happen. Nuclear gets tagged you. Songwon on the front lines. Febiven hungry for blood. He's going to get key, or is he? Nice flash at the end of the death mark. Perfect timing. But Songwon, he's overstepped. He goes down, and H2k find advantage.
Yeah, that's finally what H2k were looking for. Okay, Jankos gives up his life, but H2k were in position to pick up the pieces. Odoamne in the backside as well. Wasn't needed for the first fight. Linderung's trying to buy time. Very tanky.
Not a whole lot that they can do here. Febiven, not a ton of cooldowns. Not going to be able to take the tower here. Just a bit of poke coming down from H2k, but they have to respect Mickey.
That's actually really smart from Linderung. He gave up his health bar and also his ult to allow Mickey to take the safe way all the way around and wave clear. They lose position on the blue buff, but given how many members they lost, certainly not too big a deal.
Small sacrifices for the greater good of the team.
So let's watch the replay. I mean, Jankos comes out of a control ward, almost bursts down Sungyun instantly, and when the turn comes to the Jankos, you're like, wait. But remember that Febiven is cutting from top lane to the mid lane. By far going to be first there. Syndra has to walk so defensively in order to make this work, and then everyone from ROX is overextended.
Good pickups in the end, but last time we saw this come through, it was Jankos face-checking the bush, and it was a Baron coming in for ROX Tigers. H2k aren't so lucky to find a large advantage, don't have quite enough to push it in. Just a couple kills, although Keep maybe next on the menu. Nice disengage coming in from ROX, offering the damage, dissuading Jankos from face-checking forward.
Zed wasn't grouped there, so actually able to face-check and put down that vision that I was talking about would eventually be very difficult for the ROX Tigers to establish. Muller's coming from base. Is teleport advantage for Linderung because he just walked up compared to the teleport from Odoamne. Speaking of teleports, going right down the middle.
Could be a questionable play. They don't really have the damage to take him out. Febiven leaping into the backside, trying to buy time. The rest of H2k looking to disengage. Linderung may have gone too early. Odo, the only available target, he gets locked up. He may get taken out. Curtain Call comes in, have ROX overextended. Curtain Call goes wide onto the flank. It's all too easy. Febiven goes in. He's not going to get exhausted. He wants to go back. Not going to find a kill quite yet, but it's Odo who is dropped for H2k and nothing lost from ROX.
But they don't have a minion wave, they don't have an obvious objective to pick up, and they're certainly not turning on to Baron, so teleport for a kill. Kind of answering what Odoamne tried to pull off in mid lane, so no big advantage taken there. I like the teleport given the mid lane force, and it also forces Febiven to react rather than just park himself in a side lane when no one is really set up on the side of H2k to answer him.
Has now returned to park himself in the side lane. Linderung doing the same on the bottom side of the map. No TP this time to join the fray, however. But it's a similar story for Odoamne, at least for now.
He's very much in bot lane. This could be a Baron force from H2k. They want to at least force him to walk up. For now, not going to be. Having the scuttle vision is very helpful for ROX in this scenario.
Sangin throws the arrow over the wall. Febiven's been waiting for an opportunity to go in. Feeling comfortable in that blue pit.
This will take a while. I want to draw your attention to the itemization from Songwon. Went second item, Sterix Gauge, or first item after the jungle, to be able to stand up and take up a bit of that Zed all in. Now it's level 16. I don't think that's going to be enough, but it is a tool as Key's dead.
Yep. Not a lot to say there. Key gets dropped. Key gets popped. H2k may look for a Baron now.
They will draw Nautilus to walk up first, though, because now they don't have anyone to be able to pressure around the Baron. We talked about the difficulties of ROX Tiger's warding, and yeah, Key's going to die a lot this game.
A little bit of a struggle. 2-1-3, only his first death. Beautiful flash to escape what looked like a certain death last time Febiven ulted onto him.
Linderong walking up himself. He's the only one who can try this. They don't have any spot vision. They do have Varus, but Sungyun is trying to hold on to...
Oh, Maokai coming on the side. Febiven running forward. Flash from Mickey.
Very defensive flash.
A lot of respect paid over to Febiven. It's an advantage that H2k are happy to have. They trade him back and forth, but not losing too much. Both teams just testing each other, looking for openings, looking for opportunities, finding nothing yet.
But ROX are keeping H2k as a 5-man unit. They're not allowing Febiven the latitude to visit the side lanes, as his build honestly dictates. So, forcing a Z comp to 5v5, will they win a 5v5? Very possible from H2k because of all the different targets available to Febiven especially. But they'd rather be in the sideline. That's kind of the percentage play you want to make, but for now denied, and ROX trying to extend the game. I don't know if things get necessarily much better as things go on.
We'll have to see adjusting forward, but the defensive items you mentioned, the Sterix Gauge, Zanya's Hourglass. Edge of Night will help Varus a little bit if he can block the Death Mark, although it is unlikely. So doing their best to mitigate the impact of the Zed pick overall, however, it is still just Linderong who can feel confident moving forward in any lane, in any situation.
What I really want to see is someone like Che, maybe even Jankos, walking with the Zed and allowing them to actually get the vision over the blue buff that should have been established 5-6 minutes ago. We saw one nice cut from Febiven from top to mid that got them an advantage.
Nice block on the Void Link to nullify the Cocoon, but Jankos is still going forward. Key's still getting caught out. Now looking to go forward, wants to get the pick on, gets in, gets out. Febiven. Curtain Call goes in. It's Sangyun who could be in trouble, but Linderong is too far forward. His team is not there to back him up. Curtain Call's gone, so they are feeling comfortable to move forward, but it may not be enough. Linderong on the front lines, slow, steady, burn down. Mickey looking for a little bit of something, but gets caught in the arms of Otawamne. Slow fight, back off. H2k looking for control. Ocean Drake will make it easy to heal up here.
But when does H2k actually feel like they're strong enough to start the Baron? 4 kills on both their main carries. Neither of them, specifically the Nuclear, not fantastic at taking Barons. Less consistent damage on the Jhin, but Febiven will do plenty of damage on it. A single kill onto Malzahar will happen, rinse and repeat. That's just the reality of trying to get wards, especially when Nautilus is not grouped with the team. But this needs to be the objective. Scrying Orb spots it. They have Otawamne to tank it. What will be the reaction from ROX?
I think Nepal Nuclear reloads, 4 shots ready for the fight. Are just going to back off. Linderong hits the Spider, not going to connect. Songwon running forward to the Baron. That's not good.
Deathfire touch.
Sapperling.
He's so low.
Oh, it's so... Nope. Febiven, they're hungry for it. They're going to try to take down Key once again, and they're going to get him. Brave walks away with a sliver of life. Maybe this is the opportunity for H2k.
They know that Songwon's out of the fight, can get a bit of lifesteal off the creeps from his jungle item, but nothing more. This should be the Baron move from H2k.
Oh, Songwon, he uses his first smite to heal up a little bit. Got a second one on the way, ready to contest if he can. Damage going in, Che's the one who's going to get locked up. Jankos goes up, Che is all too low. Febiven wants to go forward, he goes in onto Mickey. What can he get? He needs to pull back, but down. He can't get it. Sonya's goes up. Do they have the damage? He's trying to ult, but it's not enough. Jankos too tanky. Curtain Call's coming out. It might be curtains for ROX. Sangyun trying to use Linderong to body block. Patience goes in.
Oh, he got it!
Oh, Nuclear! That's the European sniper. Moving in. Linderong now set to fall. The crit, not quite enough, but it's the slow, steady goodbye from H2k, and one nice shot to close it out.
Conga line leader job is not available for Linderong. Certainly let his team down in that regard. Don't know about that one. And with Redemption, actually, they're going to switch on to the Baron. Should be a pretty easy clear. Key is going to come up, walk up, but what can he do? He's died 3 times in the last 5 minutes, it feels like.
All too cautious. They're just going to try to kill him again, but they need to complete the Baron. Nuclear walks up with the crit. Ace goes down. Baron continues to grab Smite just to heal up because he knows he's got the luxury of taking his time. This is the H2k in the driver's seat. The Europe fans wanted to see 5k gold lead. Baron drops. Nuclear, the man of the hour.
I think Key spent about roughly 70% of the last 5 minutes with a gray screen. No pause for that. It's not an issue that
I mean, it is an
people
issue.
can assist him with. It's probably going to have to be off his own regard. Again, Malzahar, a bit fruitless trying to ward in this scenario. Walking up and trying to contest the Baron 1v3, also a bit fruitless. Not sure what to say there about Key.
This is a really good opening for H2k as well. Zhonya's being down means Feven has that much more kill pressure. Baron being up means that every lane is in danger.
And Febiven's just so strong. That Black Cleaver you were speaking about earlier is complete. He can split push with Baron and no one will be able to enter lane. Guardian Angel Linderang, I guess, will be the best option, but that just means that Maokai will be on the other side of the map. Another Drake, that's third ocean of the game for H2k secured. So that's 3 oceans and a mountain, so Elder Dragon will also be a big field of battle.
Regen! And true damage. True damage being probably the more important part. Ocean, ocean, mountain, ocean.
Again, oceans in this current meta feel kind of like old Drakes.
We're
second stack and fourth stack of Dragon.
We're like landlocked here. I feel like this is contextually inappropriate. More mountains, less oceans.
No narrative dragons this game, sadly. Every time we have a telecom war, we get 3 Infernals, so I'm happy.
That's wonderful.
Right giveth, right get the way.
I don't think it's a conscious.
How do you know?
Pretty sure it's RNG.
Come on, there's an Infernal switch, right? Is there an Infernal switch? Come on, tell me, Dracos. I must know.
All right, get out your tinfoil hat, Papa Smithy. I'm gonna take you for a ride. I don't know.
They wouldn't share that with the casters. Plausible deniability.
Pretty sure it's just RNG, my friend. Ottawamne, not nearly as scared.
Is that actually all-inning on the bot side as well?
Going forward.
He used his death mark on Mickey, but Flash and the Zhonya's enough to cancel that out. That was off screen, but clearly just shows you how the pressure game is being played. Immense pressure being applied. No one can enter lane against Febiven apart from the Nautilus. Gives Maokai free time in tops. They have position in every lane. All these easy objectives going down, and hell, they're trying to break the base as well.
Slow, steady push. Edge of Night to mitigate the ability to CC down that Zed. It's the slow, systematic close we were kind of waiting to see from H2k, but maybe still some opportunities to throw it away here in this instance. Sangwon doing his best to clear out the waves, smiting away the final creep just to make sure no more damage can drop. But this is the grim state of the late game coming in for ROX, is that Zed is just too far ahead.
Zed's itemization so clean these days with all the lethality items and no QSS to easily answer his ultimate. Mickey falls low, and there's the ult.
Ooh, he's just gonna get popped up. It's gonna be all too easy for Feven. He's running into the back lines. Mark spinning, not gonna find the kill in the end. Is just going to pull back coverage. Jankos does go down, not enough to dissuade the engage though. H2k continue to push forward. They're gonna break the inhibitor.
Linderang's actually just gonna go in.
Oh. Arrow goes out. Chase starting to get lows. Might be the last stand coming in for ROX Tigers, but Ottawamne is too tanky. They don't have the damage to deal with him. Nothing in the kit of Malzahar.
Well, the Varus, whose build, of course, has moved straight to the poking, sieging builds and was preyed upon the moment that they opened up that early lead, H2k. This is such a what-if game from both sides, given how ROX started. Key.
Run. Deathfire touch. Nuclear goes godlike. In goes Ottawamne. This could be the close. One shot, dancing grenade. 4th shot drops onto the tower. Feven sidesteps the hook. H2k, absolute dominance here as we move into the mid game. 9-20 the kill score. A 12k gold lead and 2 inhibitors down. All but confirming a game 3 in this instance.
And a super fascinating one, it has to be said, given how the games have gone. Game 1 kind of went against our expectations after some of those trademark mistakes from H2k in the mid-game got very much punished. This game was much more what was expected after the draft. Love the last pick Zed from Febiven, and we're going to see a replay. And Linderang has certainly stood up this game, done his job on the Nautilus. Just around him, Zed is assassinating everyone else. And unkillable Nautilus, unfortunately, means very killable other members in this game, as we're going to see that replay. Oh. Well, they just could have not moved, you know?
Nautilus has a really big front, but a really small backside when it comes to hitboxes, I think is what we learned. Squat more, Nautilus. Squat more. Give your team the hitbox that they need to block this. That's just unfortunate. That's one of those fringe cases where you're like, all right, now I know that, but there's no way I would have known that
exactly. Hitbox being bigger on one side than the other, it seems. Now H2k just have free run of the map. You know, they can walk up in multiple lanes. They'll probably just play 2. They don't need to play 1-3-1 anymore. The turret dive's certainly a reality given how tanky Odo Omne is. Double Guardian Angels, so even Jankos can enter, reset aggro, or even just tank up.
This is it, Papa Smithy. Is this our game 3? One final push potentially coming in from H2k. One inhibitor, all that remains between them and the Nexus Towers. Kind of just waiting with bated breath, seeing what ROX are going to do.
And we're just waiting for H2k to pull a trigger. It's not really ROX. Their force is non-existent. A flank from Linderung means he's not in position to peel for the 4 people that are free food for Febiven, so they're just waiting for H2k to make that move. They're going for that deep teleport.
May not be enough. Tower gets burned down slowly. Nautilus coming in on the backside. That's a lot of damage. Nuclear's caught all alone in front of the Nautilus. He's got a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I don't know what it's going to mean. He's exhausted out, and H2k are kiting back.
Black Cleaver here as well.
Curtain call goes in. Febiven's going to make it out. Linderung going to be the sacrificial lamb. GA pops. The shot goes through. Mickey drops. H2k cleaning up the ROX Tigers. Now moving in to break the base. They don't even need this inhibitor as they go move in. And they look to close out this game 2.
In a different game, that was exactly the right move from Linderung, but no latitude for things like that. We're going to get a game 3, a welcome one. This series could have been anything. Feels like it has been a different time. Remember how this game started. It was insanity, and congratulations, H2k. Europe will not go down without a fight. And we get a 3rd game, a best of 1, fittingly, for all the marbles.
And 1 game to decide who will advance to the bracket stage. 1 game to see who will go down to the elimination match. A lot of pressure on both teams, but honestly for H2k, you gotta be feeling proud of Febiven. He's had 2 amazing games.
And the story of this game will certainly be a bit like you're really spinning a yarn, because it started off so well for ROX Tigers. They understood how this game would play. As you'd expect, they're a Z team themselves. Went for that full court press, took 3 buffs, and then you saw it kind of slip through their fingers as demonstrably as possible. The botched top lane gank as Jankos kind of turns things around and gets the gank in mid, and from there, it slipped away, and H2k deserving winners.
Yeah, certainly did in the end, of course, closing it out cleanly, although it did take them a bit of time. Well, that's enough from us. Let's see how the analysts felt about that Z pick and that H2k win.
So we found the secret for EU. It all relies on the wrong predictions from Crumbs and Froskurin.
Well,
Who knew?
This is the formula, guys. If we just keep picking the wrong team.
Oh, I just don't want to get blamed after this.
So next game round, when I ask you your predictions, it's both going to be ROX Tigers, right?
We got to see the draft.
So that game right there, I mean, you were excited about the Z pick. They didn't quite migrate into that 1-3-1 that you're expecting as early, but again, that's probably down to ROX Tigers, right? They kind of delayed it ever so slightly.
But the beauty behind the Z pick is because if you're going to play against the ROX Tigers, who are just going to be kind of feeding and putting themselves in positions where they're just going to die constantly and kind of apply pressure that way, Z can snowball really well off that. But, I mean, ROX Tigers really pushed the line between are you feeding, what are you doing, the Morellonomicon Malzahar? I mean, come on, right?
And just kind of to piggyback off of that, like, not to take credit away from H2k because this game was much better than them, but a lot of those key snowball plays that allowed them to get their foot back into the game and to ultimately win were actually mistakes that they capitalized on from ROX Tigers. It wasn't them being proactive in setting up the correct play. You think about like the botch dive top lane. You think about you know, Elise just kind of face checking into Zed and, you know, waiting arms and picking up the kills that way. The fact that Key is building that Morellonomicon and then looking for the Zanya.
Like, you know, I need more AP. But the level 1 was so good from ROX Tigers. They 3-man invade, try to stop the saplings, they steal the red buff, 3-buff them with the dual lane, getting the red buff them. That is an immediate signal. All right, Syndra, don't get ganked. You're going to get ganked from the right side. Just hug left side. We know he can do that. He did that post about 5 minutes. But the fact that they died to that gank, which was so obvious, all you have to do is give up a couple CS because he was stomping the lane in CS. At one point, maybe 20 CS up, just doing so well. And you saw that being exemplified by the gold lead still being in ROX's favor, even though they were giving up kills. The CS was all over the place for them. And they just didn't respect the opponent. They just kept dying. the H2k.
For one of the major things that I noticed during that game is when it came to this Baron dance, the vision control was there for H2k, and Key was like, do you know what's going to be good over time and time again? I'm going to walk directly into their team. I mean, and obviously someone had to make the call, but then Nautilus should, like Papa Smithy said, the only person on ROX that can do this is Nautilus, right? He has to be the one that makes that front line cool, because at least he can survive for a bit longer. But Key was the one that was getting caught out time and time again. And again, the H2k didn't need to do Baron. They kept doing it over and over until they finally found something decisive, and then took the Baron and suddenly snowballed out from there.
Well, they were so strong that they had no problem looking towards the 5v5, and they had such great pick potential on their composition. My thing is like Key's having a real rough series. Like his Thresh in game number 1, just like unfortunately watching Thresh miss all these skill shots, and it's like, coach, throw me a bone, put some on Malzahar, single button.
And he's like, man, could we get easier than Malzahar? Just put him on Janet, put him on Soraka. Yeah, but at what point is it reverting back to LCK form, the kind of sporadic all over the place that we see from the ROX Tigers here and there, or is it just an off game?
Yeah.
Because it had really looked bad. Like those 2 support games, there were maybe 3 hooks that landed. Like that is not really the standard you're looking for, and you do rely on your support quite a bit. Maybe Karma, just speed everybody up.
No, I agree with that. And, I brought it up at the very beginning of the desk. Consistency. ROX Tigers are very inconsistent. They usually have really good ideas, but then you see things like that Graves dive where it's like, oh, God, such a disaster. Whereas H2k are far more consistent and far more dominant. You can see that because they are topping their region in the rankings.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, it will be the deciding match between H2k and ROX Tigers. We will find out who is going to make the semi-final at the Spodek and who has to fight for their lives on Saturday. Stick around. We'll be back very soon.